Meeting, please stand for the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Dr. Willett, I think we've got some acknowledgements tonight.
Yes, we absolutely do. It's a very exciting evening with respect to everything and the acknowledgements. So I'd like to start off tonight by acknowledging the TEF, Tolland Education Foundation. I just want to take a moment to recognize and celebrate the Tolland Education Foundation. They are a dedicated, all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded in 2004, I think, right? 2004. And has spent more than the past 2 decades inspiring and funding innovative, creative learning experiences across the Tolland Public Schools. Through the generous support of local residents, businesses, and community partners, TEF has consistently provided grant funding for programs and resources that enrich academics, foster life skills, and extend learning beyond what is possible within the typical school budgets. In just last year, the foundation awarded more than 40,000 in grants, the largest in, I believe, its history, to support initiatives ranging from early school readiness programs and hands-on maker spaces to updated reporting equipment and educational robots and immersive field experiences and all kinds of things for all ages and abilities. The Tolland Education Foundation's ongoing commitment to not only enhance classroom learning, but also strengthen community investment in the success of the schools impacts and helps the growth of every TPS student. So tonight we have with us, and as I read your name, if you could just wave the royal wave so they know you, Anne Hill, Gretchen Hatula, Paula Tremblay, and Teresa Carey. Thank you so much for all of the great things that you did.
Before the tariffs kicked in, we were able to get these that were probably designed somewhere in Asia.
Design.
Built me.
Board, would you like to?
I would just like to say thank you very much. I've had the pleasure of working with you a bit over the years. It's fantastic what you provide to our schools and our community. You do so many fun activities for both, parents and kids. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And I love your shirt. And we really appreciate you coming out tonight in the frigid weather and taking time away from your families. You already do so much volunteering. I don't know that people really understand that the amount of time and hours that you put in, and you guys have been doing it for a very long time. So just appreciate you so very, very much. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to take a picture? Yeah, you guys want to take a picture? Do you want to say something?
What are some things coming up? I know there's one. There's a Wizards game, that I'm excited for.
The Harlem Wizards game, which is our biggest fundraiser on March 21st. So everybody come out, buy a ticket, come out. It's a fun night. Jason, of course, helps. He volunteers that night as our referee, so we appreciate it. And it's a great night. I mean, we've sold out the last few years. We have almost 1,000 people in attendance. It's a great community event. So.
It's so much fun. So,
Yeah.
anything else? Do you guys want to take a picture?
Yeah.
Yes.
We kind of do it in front of the town's emblem.
Sure. Maybe we should get the chair. Vice Chair. Oh, no, that's our. Maybe line up in front of the cam or. I was just trying to move Mr. R2D2 over here. And then everybody can. And then G line up here. Here. Maybe we just go right here. Yeah. And then you have the emblem.
Yeah. There's one of those things. Also.
Ready? No fun of these.
One of those, and not.
You got it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yes, you're three.
Oh, yeah, I was doing it, that's why I was 3 hours.
Yeah, normally I just that lift is forward in our SUV, so whatever, yeah, it has to drive right through, right? This follows push the limit, so I have to. And I always should JP, got stuff again.
Oh, Jimmy, you want to?
Oh, that would be awesome, yes.
Or Lane, what about Lane?
You want mine?
Here.
I'm so serious.
I know.
I'm looking.
Spread out.
I know.
Scenario.
Five thirty.
So 90% of the meetings on yours waiting.
All right, well,
All right, so our next honoree tonight is Coach Link. I don't know, many of you probably know of him. He's a legend, and I have to say, 48 years ago, and I feel like this reads like Star Wars, you know, 48 years ago, Augie started working in Tolland as a PE teacher. And during that time here, he served as the athletic director and coached multiple sports. As Coach Augie accumulated over 800 wins, 3 state championships, and 15 division championships, his legacy continues to shape our community through those he worked with, and countless athletes have had the opportunity to learn valuable skills from Coach Link. Throughout his career, one message was always in the forefront: do the right thing and have fun. We definitely use a lot more of that. Coach Link can still be found running the clock at a scoreboard at all of our home basketball games, and we're just so lucky to have him. I know Mr. McCluskey is here tonight too, to also speak to the wonderfulness of Coach Link.
I'll just, if I can jump in
Oh,
there.
of course, please do, please do.
Just a couple of things.
Yeah.
I actually started in 1968 before there was a full high school in the old high school. I only went up to 11th graders.
Oh.
And I retired from teaching after 35 years, about 22 years ago. So it's actually been 57 years I've been associated with Tolland School.
Well, thank you.
And I can tell you right now, I've loved every minute. I used to joke with my wife a lot because I loved what I was doing with teaching and coaching, that I never worked a day in my life. And that's the way I felt. For me, it was not work. It was not work. It was something that I really loved, something I was meant to do. I graduated from Springfield College in 1968. And the numbers are a little bit off. I got over 820 and I had 4 state championships.
I just short changed.
But that's all I want to jump in just to correct a couple of those.
thank you.
I was going to Springfield College, but we were not there at the same time. But I say all the time that I've only ever met 2 people in my life that went to Springfield College, and I kind of questioned how they got in. Coach Link is clearly one of the people that definitely deserves to be in there. He's just a great individual. When I first got here to Tolland, and I heard that we had someone that was all set to run the clock at basketball games, and I didn't have to find anyone, I was like, it's a good job. And then I got to meet Augie. He came in and we went over some things and introduced myself to him. And for the last 5 years, there's anytime Augie comes in and work on the schedule or whatever, I'm blessed that he always takes time to sit down, has a conversation with me. We talk about teaching, we talk about coaching. He talks about, what it was like being an athletic director and what it's like now. And it was just nice to be able to have someone that would, just really take the time to do that for you. And every single time he left my office, I just felt calm. And I just felt like I was cared for. And I'm glad that he's sticking around, and that, when he said he was done coaching, that it wasn't, I'm done with basketball too. So keep around as long as we can.
Therapy,
Everything, yeah. And then, it's like I said, we spent some time talking with Augie, and it's just, it's an absolute joy and a pleasure every single time. So I
Appreciate it,
want to thank him for that.
Tim. I actually stopped coaching at the end of May, the beginning of June, and I got to tell you, I'm still I haven't quite grasped it yet, because I've been doing it for, it seems like my whole life, and I loved it so much, and I miss it already. But it was time to let somebody else take over and get the job done, but I really, really enjoyed my experience here in Tolland. Loved it here in Tolland. Two boys went here, both went to Tolland High School. We all played soccer at Springfield College. My oldest son's a PE teacher down in Madison School Systems. He coached boys varsity soccer at Han High School for 10 years. And he's now the unified coach. I don't know if you're familiar with our unified program. Yeah, he coaches unified team for Han High School, both fall, winter and spring. So Tolland was nothing but great for me and my family, and I really appreciate the chance to be involved with the educational system here for all these years and what all of you guys have done for me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have this plaque for you. You want to leave it?
Sure. So presented to Augie Link in grateful appreciation of your years of dedicated service to the student athletes of Tolland Public Schools. Your leadership, guidance, and unwavering commitment have shaped futures, inspired excellence, and strengthened our community. Thank you for making a difference.
We're into mugs here. You got the fancy.
That's nice.
That's a official. Thanks again. Thank you.
Good question. You've been the golf coach recently, right?
Yeah, I golf coach for the last 48 years.
All right. So Jaden and I coach baseball together. This is the guy we're losing baseball players.
Yeah, no kidding.
So maybe we'll stop losing baseball players now to the golf team.
I make up for it if you give me some tips on my swing.
Yeah.
It needs some help.
Time.
I appreciate it.
We're gonna expect you two up here in how many years? Yeah.
He'd be a great
You
mentor.
got a lot to live up to.
To live up to.
Coach Link, I just wanted to say that, last year was my first time, going to the, sports award night for the spring. My son was playing freshman baseball. And I heard you speak about, your golfers, and it was just very obvious how much that you cared for them and how much that you loved doing what you were doing. You were speaking about one very excellent, golfer, two at the time, and you could just really see that it was a big piece of your heart. So thank you so much. And
Well, I appreciate that.
very nice to meet you.
I should add this, yeah, I got a lot of wins, but it wasn't me. I'm telling you the truth here. 48 years, first year here. Okay, I knew a little bit about golf, but I was a baseball coach at the time. I was coaching JV baseball here. A couple of kids came to me and said, "Hey, can you coach the golf team?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." That first year, won our league, and won the state tournament. 1977. Stevie Tantillo, Dave Kopsick, you might know Mike Kopsick, it's his older brother, and the two Newman twins. So that gives you an idea, it wasn't me. I felt like I was a chauffeur driving it. And we won a state championship. And then just recently, we won a state championship 2 years ago. And this year we were runner up in the state tournament. So again, it's the individuals that I've been lucky enough to get that has really done all the hard work. And I was just in the right place at the right time. So that's, it was a blessing to have all those great golfers over all those years. So. Enough. Wasted enough of your time.
No. That's like very nice.
This isn't a way.
Can we take a picture of you before you leave? Print on it?
We have the golfers on here tonight too.
Yeah.
I feel like this must have been one of the ones that they talked about.
Yeah.
Stand in front of that emblem there.
Sure.
Flag. Just got
It's all
Good job.
Oh, still getting emotional.
Very good.
All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, that's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, President.
Thank you very much.
If you're not calling in here to speak at somebody's point, like was dig out. They're not asking for the right for them, so you know, like.
Anybody who got
You shouldn't speak at all, I stayed in Connecticut, at somebody's sport banquet every year. Been there that long,
Baseball swinging.
with that impressive record. They're losing it, you know.
I think
Yeah.
bring it back.
And then, what is this here?
It's not going too, it's not going too.
Thing is that, selected. Connecticut High School Coaches Association Hall of Fame.
Whoa.
Nice.
Back in 2022, just after the COVID year. And I think a lot of it, like I said, was longevity. You know, I mean, not too many guys spoke 48 years.
Not too many people make an impact on as many people as you have. And from the things that I've heard with the golf team, it was a family.
Yeah, that's what I hope it was. Yeah, and I, you know, again, so those two of my biggest tenets was the number one reason why kids play sports. I learned this as an athletic director. You know why? The number one reason why? Their coach? No? You want to take a guess?
Be a part of a team, community.
A lot of everybody, my friends do this, to have fun.
Amen.
Oh, my God.
So I used to drill this into my coaches when I was an athletic director, my younger guys. I'd say, hey, look, so this is supposed to be fun. Not only for your kids, but for you.
Yeah.
And then I use the other one, do the right thing. Well, what's that? That's a nebulous term. That means everything. But it can be specific. But if you do the right thing every day, and you come prepared, good things happen to you. And that's what I would try to get across to them, and good things did happen to them, and good things definitely happened to me, and it was a win-win for everybody. So those are the two big things that I hope get carried on, and I'm sure they will with Tim's leadership. You know, kids having fun and kids doing the right thing, and good things will happen.
Read more of you in this world.
Do.
100%.
Thank you.
Maybe you could coach some of us.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
I coach Steve.
All right, one more acknowledgement, Dr. Willett.
So I also wanted to take an opportunity tonight to acknowledge our art students, our TIS art students. We ran out of time last time, but I do want to kind of put it up there for you. The artwork that was displayed at the public library. I think we had over 60 kids come and participate that evening. And it really is like an art show with, you know, giving flowers and all kinds of awesome things that you'd see at any other art show at any other fine gallery. So our fine gallery is the library. They did a fantastic job, the TIS kids, with their various works, and I will acknowledge them by name: Laura Wu, Grace Bondi, Hadley Skinner, Natasha Dizzen, Kamya Nelson, Paul Rendu, Annabelle Ignatz, Caden Singer, Emil Senek, Kendall Rath, Victoria Martinez, Raylan Mitchell, Kiona Maggie, Amelia Carlson, Junith Dinesh Kuhn, Annie Strolley, Victoria Martinez, Raylan Mitchell. So these kids did an amazing job. They were honored for their artwork at TIS a few weeks ago. And we're just so thankful to have them in our district, making every day just a little bit nicer for everybody.
Great. I love seeing their pictures on the superintendent's Facebook page at their
Yep.
families and
That was amazing.
Yeah, for the month of February,
What's that? Yeah,
they're gonna be up through.
they will every month. Yeah, we're doing them. And yeah, kudos to the library. They did a fantastic job. Tolland Public Library, you know, in so many ways is just fantastic. And they are sponsoring these events, you know, just it's awesome. They're awesome staff. It's a great resource for Tolland.
great. Thank you.
You
So
said,
Mary Ann, the director there, she's great.
you said how many students were?
There were 60 families involved, 60 kids, 60 people showed up for that.
That's awesome.
Great. Thank you. All right. Can we bring Coach Link back? And have the evening with him?
I know, right? We need more in this, more of him in this world, because his the vibe in this room
Yeah.
when he is speaking is just phenomenal.
Just want to listen.
Yeah, right.
Keep listening.
Seriously, it's the thing I'm like this.
We'll invite him to all future meetings.
Amen.
Okay, are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the January 14th, 6 minutes.
Second.
Actually, I think we could just do a vote on this. So, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope, that passes unanimously. Thank you. So public participation, the members of the Tolland Board of Education welcome members of the public to share their thoughts and ideas at this time. When appropriate to do so, members of the board and the administration may respond to comments during points of information. However, in consideration of those in attendance and in an effort to proceed in a timely manner, follow-up discussion may need to take place outside of the meeting setting. Okay, Dr. Willie, you got the timer ready?
It's right there.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to the room first. Anyone like to speak?
Do I have to get up?
Whatever you want.
Heather McCann, 62 Preston Drive. I just wanted to say that it's such a breath of fresh air to start meetings on a positive note. I think it's such a great thing that you guys do. And it just feels a lot better in here when I come to the BOE meetings and, you know, when we go to the town council meetings as of late. So I hope we can keep this civil, friendly, upbeat interactions, especially during budget season. But I did want to suggest, I know, unfortunately, the budget workshops, they never tend to go as we want. We just don't get the attendance. I haven't gone the last couple of years. I have gone in the past, and even at that time, the attendance was low. And I was just wondering if it would be beneficial to do like how town council does, where they have the individual departments come and talk to the council about their needs. And so you have the administrators of the departments from the schools come in and talk about their needs. So everybody's already here. It's on record, it's recorded, we can disseminate it, we can share it. And I think you'll get more viewership then, and you'll have more people listening. So just a suggestion, and I do think a rebrand maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going to online. Would anyone online like to speak at this time? If you would, please put up your online hand. Seeing none, back to the room.
Sure. Hi, Mary Rose DeBerg, 37 Ryan Road. As we start talking about the budget, and I know we're not just starting and talking about the budget, I just asked that, and I don't think any of you have actually done this, but I don't like the word transparency, because I actually don't think there's anything secret about our budget. I think our budget might be hard to understand, and that's very different. So, and you know, it is accessible, but sometimes it seems cumbersome. So I think really the way we talk about things go a long way to have people trust the process. It's not an easy process. It's a long process, and everyone's not going to be happy, but using the right verbiage and talking about it in such a way that people can feel like they can understand it, I think is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going once more online. Okay, seeing none, I think we can close out public participation, Dr. Willett. Moving on to correspondence. Gina?
We had 2 emails over the last few weeks since last meeting. One regarding safety and security, specifically what's going on in our country with the ICE situation, as well as another one regarding the Tolland cross country programs, having some ideas on supporting that as well.
Okay. Next is points of information. Would any board members like to share anything at this time? Joel?
Just want to thank Mr. Willett and his staff for week's workshop as we're, in the middle of the budget season. That gave us a good opportunity to ask some of these questions. I know it wasn't as favorable for some of the community, especially with the lack of participation. But thanks to Dr. Willett and his staff. And I also want to give a little shout out to TIS and their cute little spirit week that they had this last week, and seeing little Dr. Willett in the so you had an opportunity. You haven't had an opportunity to go see it. Yeah.
That was cute.
Well, they said you tried to send them here, so you didn't have to be here, so that's what I was doing.
Was just having a mini document.
So, yeah, if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it, go online and look at it on Facebook. It was actually really neat to see the kids having a good time with it too. It was really nice to see. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Dan?
I, again, wanted to thank for the workshop. I always love the workshop and I spent extra time. I think I was the last person that I would say get kicked out. I could spend hours all day talking to our administrators and staff. I will say over the years, when I first was involved in one of those rounds, I do remember being down in that library room and it was full of community members. Then COVID hit and things changed, obviously. And then we ended up doing them in the high school and going into separate rooms, but I thought we did the best we could with the resources we had, with the situation that we had going into rooms. So I'm glad that we're back in that venue. Although I really appreciate the idea, what you were saying, again, we have to be cognizant of their time. I don't know if it's a special meeting earlier in the evening, but I definitely think that's something that we should discuss, because I think there was only 4 community members and one of them was from the Tolland Education Foundation that was there, and some of our folks that are consistently at our meetings. And I definitely think we need to get that information out. And if it is in a public meeting and having it recorded, I have attended the town council when they do present, like Chief Lytle present his budget and so on. Something I know is a little bit different. I think we could probably try to get creative. I don't want to rewrite the book, but I think that it's definitely a great thought and something we should look into. So I do appreciate that. And man, did I just love tonight with the awards and accolades, and it did set off the tone. So
Anybody else? Mackenzie?
Thank you. I just, wanted to echo some of the sentiment that's been shared in the room tonight, and suggest some additional support for how we are messaging our budget process to the community, right? We very specifically put in community engagement in our goals this year. I think that it would behoove us to have, really a comprehensive kind of communication process that surrounds this process that's really so integral to what we do as a Board of Education. Especially for some of us new folks, right, to really understand the role that we play in the advocacy of the budget when we get there, right? We all know that the budget's going to have to go to a referendum, and eventually a budget's going to be passed at referendum. And so I think it's important that we work together as much as possible to get to a place where we're all feeling supportive of the budget, maybe not comfortable, but supportive, and use our voices in town to have an expeditious referendum this year.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I'm staring.
Comes negative Nancy over here.
Oh, no.
I agree with everything you folks just stated. The rounds last week, how the budget gets communicated to the public and the words that we use in this room. The meeting last night, I heard the town versus Board of Ed again, and it just drove me nuts. And so sorry to be negative, but it just drives me nuts. And so we're hitting our head against the wall with verbiage already. So it is my hope that we can work in this room to mitigate that as much as possible, which many of us have in years past already, which I'm grateful for. And so which brings me to my next point, which I'll keep very minimal. To the other public participation point here, I am also very grateful that at least to start the first 3 months of this term, we've seen a lot of what we saw sort of last term, which is that we can hash it out, get it all out, let's figure it out. But we all are aligned in where we want to go, right? We all want to end somewhere positive for whether it's taxpayers, students, teachers, staff, whoever it might be. And so it is my hope, especially after the last few meetings that were not on Wednesdays, that we can maintain that. And yeah, I won't get specific, Brian, I won't get specific, but it's my hope that we maintain that in here, because You know, none of us ran to be combating with each other and fighting each other. That's, you know, you go sign up for a boxing class or something in that case, you know, but that's not what this is. And so, especially on a day like today where those famous words have never been much of a religious person. So love thy neighbor, right? You never know what people are going through, you know, and it doesn't matter how recent, how far distant it is. So, but especially on a day like today, you know, I think it's important for us to all to figure out how to work with each other, regardless of, you know, where we come from, what we think, you know, whatever. So stay aligned, and that's my hope. So thank you all for at least giving me that sense of, and then coach makes it 10 times better. And the Tolland Education Foundation makes it that much better. I mean, in the art, and I did 60 people, I'm telling you. So there's a lot of positives, and I hope that we can harp on that in this room and keep doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I'd like to, we got a lot going on tonight, but I would like to see possible discussion further down the road regarding having the departments come and have a presentation on record. I think they would go a lot. I think that idea is very, very good in getting the public involved in what the schools are actually asking for in a verbal, more concise manner instead of trying to dig through, you know, 100+ pages, 5, 6, 7 appendixes, and all kinds of charts and graphs. It'll be more, I think, concise, thorough presentation. I think might bode well. Obviously, it's a little bit for this year, but I think for next year, you know, maybe after we get back from the summer break, we can maybe talk about how we can get some of these put into the following year's, you know, couple of calendar, or a couple of meeting dates on how we can set up an agenda for them to come.
No, I think, yeah, I was thinking along the same lines.
I know we got a lot going on tonight, but I think, you know, let's move this talk.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we can brainstorm on this. I think we used to do something a little bit different where there was a little bit more of a presentation piece. So
Just to have them all here, and then that was felt to be too disconnected and you didn't get to do follow-up questions, so we did the rotation workshop we currently do for that reason. Because it was always a them, you thing, and then you never, there was a feeling that you never really got a chance to talk to them and really drill down on things. So that's why the council does have more dates. It has these days, like 3 or 4 or 5 days for those kinds of things, so that you don't have, unfortunately, that time. You have to get it done in a month.
yeah.
But that is why we went to the rotation workshop, is because people felt like they didn't get a lot out of that. Like, here they are, and, you know, it wasn't much time, but there's a hybrid.
So
There's always a hybrid.
great, some ideas. I think your timeline is right. I think maybe that in the fall,
Yeah,
we should definitely bring that up.
yeah.
Thank you. Jacob.
I was gonna say, I think there's sort of 2 different missions involved. Like for us, you kind of have to do it, it's very compressed, right? So to have everybody each department do a 10-15 minute presentation, that's gonna eat up the whole time, and we're not gonna have time for, you know, questions and sitting down, right? But the voters want to have that information in time for a referendum, right? So you could potentially have a department come in, you know, you have to look at how many meetings we have, but you could have a department or 2 come in for, you know, 10 minutes each. And then if it fits the agenda, right? And so you can spread that out over the course of the year. Whereas the workshop thing, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be. But so my point was that maybe that is something we could consider doing, you know, sometime later this year, at least a couple nights of it. Not to dominate the whole night, but just to give departments a chance to say their piece. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? No. All right, moving on. Next is student representative reports. They're unable to be here tonight, so we will move on to committee and liaison reports. So we actually have some of those tonight. Jaden, would you like to start with policy?
Yeah, there was only one item on the agenda. It was related to policy 1010, of building use fees and whatnot, and updating those. Dr. Willie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they haven't been updated in a long time, about a decade or so. something along those lines. So this morning, there were a lot of good questions asked and the conversation has been tabled. That way we can be provided two different versions of what already exists, but with with more specificity on the surcharges and how that affects pricing and whatnot. So if there's anything else to add, Dr. Willett, feel free to be my guest, but only one policy discussed this morning. So that's the gist.
Brian, did you have communication? Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we just kind of highlighted touch base on the two new community members who are board members who are on that committee, and then also kind of our role and what we're gonna kind of put out for the budget. And just kind of also went over the Facebook and website and a few other things that we use as board members and also as just Walt and his team and the schools and how they communicate with parents and everything. So,
Thank you. Any new communication methods for the budget that you?
we're still brainstorming. Yeah, we have some, I think we're gonna still go with what we did last year. We get closer to whatever was passed, the number more or less pushing what the town and not putting a thumb on the scale, but just kind of providing the data.
Okay.
And then we're still brainstorming a few other things.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. FOC?
Yes, we had a compressed meeting before the rounds, focus on budget. And I think we are going to extend that conversation over the next couple of our meetings. We're doing that, and then their town council, meeting with town council, and the board of that town council, joining.
Joelle, curriculum?
Yeah, we had a first meeting this afternoon at 5:30 PM. And the one item on the agenda was discussing our curriculum topics for the year. So we brainstormed and gave Dr. Willett some ideas and thoughts. We're gonna take home our ideas and thoughts and bring them back to him for our next meeting so that we can put this together and have it set up for the whole year. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Nothing to report from negotiations.
You do it every, like Tony made me do it every meeting. All right, moving on to the chairperson's report. I don't have anything specifically written down tonight. We have a pretty hefty agenda. But I did want to say now that, Coach Link in here inspiring us, and he said at the end that one of the things he always told his kids was do the right thing. And how that can be something that's very specific, and it can also be something that's really general, right? So I think we've touched on a few things already just in our comments. We had a great meeting with our staff and administration last week. And, when you talk to them every year, I'm always impressed that their priority is really doing the right thing by our students and our staff. And they really give us so much information on that. And we're really lucky to have people that care as much as they do. And then you talk about obviously the way that we treat each other in this room, and which is of course the way that we should treat each other. But I am also very grateful for the respect and the kindness and how polite we are. Again, it's so nice to go into the discussion tonight, and I really have no doubts that we will have a respectful conversation. And of course, I just want to encourage you. I want to do the right thing as well as your chair. And I just want to encourage you to, please stop me if you feel that you're not being heard, if you need additional time. And just please, use this time to ask questions and make comments and, whatever that you say and whatever you want to discuss, especially with our board new members, like bring it to the table. I think that's why you're here, right? So I love the fact that we have so many new people in the room, and we're going to have a new conversation this year. So thank you, and let's get started. So that brings us to the superintendent's report, which we do not have anything under this evening. New business. New business, we have nothing under. So old business, we're going to do our goals conversation first.
Unless you want to flip on it, we're done. Up to you.
No, tonight Dr. Willett will tell us what we have to do next for goals. So I think we can do goals. Right?
Right. So, congratulations, you are entering the last phase of the goal process. And you've done a very good job with that. As you might recall, we had a structure for how the goals played out this year and how they were going to kind of end where you went through the process of brainstorming and narrowing and then ultimately determining. Now, this final stage is where you take the goals that you have, that you have created, and we talk about, what the, oops, I put it in the wrong column. For each of the goals, and you talk about what your expectations are going to be, what you feel like the conditions of success will be, what are you willing to support to ensure expectations can be met? What kinds of evidence would you be looking for from me to be able to do that? I can recommend some things, and what will we need to do to gain community support for the goal? So actually the goal should be in this column under the goal. But for each of these areas, we talk about 1, 2, 3, and 4. So without further ado, we would be looking at, goal 1, what are our greatest hopes for the district in this area?
Hey, the floor is open. Anyone have any ideas?
I'm trying to get to the Zoom so I can actually read it.
And you have access
You can go
to,
into the dashboard,
Okay.
you can go into the goal process,
much easier to look
and then
at there.
click on
Watch
Number
this.
5.
Yeah, if you look at what I'm doing, you're gonna get seasick. I'm just trying to move these things over.
Dashboard?
This is also on the dashboard. Well, that,
I'm looking for the pathway and how you get to the, I'm on the dashboard now, what am I clicking to get to where you're at?
if you go to the goal project, just
Oh, I see.
control F and say goal process, you'll get to
Yeah.
that site, and we're on step 5.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
It was right in my middle of my face, thanks.
Right in the middle.
And I will stop moving this around in a minute, having all these issues.
Right, so
So essentially, this, and you can also push this to next time, but you're thinking about how you're going to do that. This is where we take the goals that you created and really come up with how you plan on us getting those things done. From the, what are your greatest hopes for it? What are you willing to support to make sure it's met? What do you want me to do? And how are you going to get the community to work with you?
Okay, so starting with goal 1 with the budget, I think my greatest hope would really be that we focus on that public trust. I want them to realize that, it's not us against them. We're trying to do the best for the students and be financially responsible. That's what we keep talking about. And I think we want the public to trust the process and to understand what's going on. So I think that's my greatest hope, is that maybe this year, maybe this is the year where they look at it and they go, okay, we believe you. We believe you guys sat down and you talked and you came up with the best that they come up with for us.
any positive feedback from the community?
I think that would be a great way to,
That'd be great.
to like, not support, like evidence on how,
So
like how we judge that it happened, I guess. I don't see, but yes, that would be a great way to know we achieved the goal.
Mhm.
Is did we get even 51% positive community for,
Yeah, number 3 would be more or less system accountability. What are you going to
Right.
say? What are your indicators of success?
Yeah, what is your indicator? And so I think you're right, like a positive feedback from the community would be in like number 3. I think that would be a great way to, did we do what we were hoping for?
Mhm. I think along with that, like increased engagement. So, right, like whether or not even the feedback is positive or negative, just hearing from the community and hearing from the students, whether that be by email or in public participation at our budget meeting, I just think is always so helpful for us. So yes, certainly positive feedback that we are communicating maybe better. But just feedback in general from the community, increased engagement.
And I think that probably could go under goal 4 too in step 3, because that's also about the community engagement. So not necessarily that it has to be positive, but that maybe that we are. Maybe last year, we had 10 people attend the meeting. Maybe this year we had 12,
Yeah. That's great, JP.
Have we ever done like a formal a formal post on Facebook once a month or a formal something in the patch once a month? I mean, what have we, and if this is something we want to take more time with some other time, that's fine. I'm just sort of brainstorming a little bit. And what venues have we tried to use other than sort of ad hoc, people complain and we answer them? You know, have we tried any venues proactively, you know, so putting the question there out there?
You're specifically asking regarding budget communication?
Yeah, budget, you know, process, where are we in the process? Why, you know, hey, here's what we did this month and here's why. You know, people are gonna hear numbers put out there even while things are in process, and we tried to, you know, I don't know what it would look like, if, you know, if it would be a monthly status kind of a thing, and how many people would even engage with it, or if it would be something. My sense is, you know, people, we do have some fairly active town groups on Facebook. You know, is that a something we could be leveraging?
Like something for the communication committee.
Yeah, I think it's hard because, and Dr. Willett, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, a lot of things do get posted to a lot of the public groups. I mean, obviously, like there's public community groups and then there's school groups, but none of those are officially Board of Ed groups. Our official Facebook, when it comes to Facebook, would be the superintendent's page. And that's really the safest way, because if we want people clicking into our information and whatnot. And we do, I don't know that we necessarily just do something monthly, but there are budget updates on the superintendent's page on Facebook.
Yeah, there's weekly, we send out weekly bulletins that have filtered info at the top. We use the Facebook, account and put it out there. We do put out sometimes direct messages through the communications committee. As we get closer, we'll put out some direct messages with final site goes directly to their email and their text, linking them to information and reminders. I do have superintendent's community forums every month where people can zoom in virtually. There's no agenda. They can ask any question they want for both faculty and the community. You have these meetings where you highlight the budget, and we do try to emphasize that we have these. So we've got our texting, our direct messaging, our bulletins, and our community sort of forums. But we're willing to consider anything. I know the communications committee had also talked about all of these and making sure links are available on the website too. So we just
And the
keep
minutes are all put out too.
What's that?
The minutes of the concise, meeting of what was actually discussed, decided, talked about is also put forth too.
I'll do some videos sometime, 60 seconds, to the superintendent, and I'll talk that we have a budget meeting and budgets coming up and things like that. We do have a new thing coming out called 10 in 10. It's like 10 questions in 10 minutes, and it's actually shorter than that. The first one's going to be about our reading programs, but we could do one on budget. So we could interview one of you or the chair and the vice chair and have a 10 in 10 where we go through 10 items. The purpose there is people know it doesn't go on forever and ever. It's 10 minutes. So they can listen to it in an audio file, they can watch it in a video, but it won't take up more than 10 minutes of their time. So we're trying different things.
Yeah, and I think we utilize we utilize Patch and the JI and things like that, I think more for, particular caucus statements or the chair and the vice chair coming together or not. But I certainly wouldn't be opposed to, maybe if the communication committee wanted to put something together and bring it to the board that we could all agree on to put in Patch or JI, something with some basic information. If we wanted to spread that further, I would think that would be something great for us to entertain.
And for starters, I mean, it sounds like Walt has some things that I certainly wasn't aware of. I could do a better job of making sure that I'm dialed into those and reposting them and things like that, for sure.
Yeah, I wonder, JP, if some of the complaints about not knowing about stuff is because those people aren't on the Board of Ed email stuff.
I'm sure that's part of it.
Is it possible, Dr. Willett, that during the budget that we actually use the Board of Ed and the town email blast so that everyone that is on the Board of Ed in town gets those, whether they have a child in school or not?
Sure. We can sit.
And I think that would help.
with a certain, oh, never mind.
No, fine.
No, I was just gonna say, just as communications, I know Walt does put out like a month prior and for all the referendums and all that stuff he's taking from the town data itself. So that is kind of some of the stuff that the town is going to his distribution list as well. So the town's already sending a blast and he's reiterating the same blast to our list of, sign up people. So that's going to some people twice, but the town should be getting what he is putting out just the same as what we're putting out. Because we're not trying to sway anything, we're putting out just the exact numbers.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
think, when it comes from Dr. Willett with Board of Ed information, whether that information is regurgitated from what the town is putting out, if people don't see it from the Board of Ed side, they complain that they didn't know about it. And, this would eliminate that issue of people thinking that they don't know about it because now they've got it. And I would rather get it 2, 3, and 4 times than not at all.
And last year, Dr. Willett did send out a little bit more of an elaboration just on, what we were looking at with cuts and that. A lot of times the town's information is just the basic by department.
Yeah.
This elaborated a little bit more on how the
Sure.
referendum affected the Board of Education. So, and then we saw such a huge outpouring of, comments and questions.
Yeah.
That went out because like Bill says, when the superintendent sends it out, people tend to pay attention. So maybe even just that going through the town blast would be helpful. But you're right. I mean, a lot of the basic information and the dates to vote and things like that,
Yeah.
does already come out through the town blast.
So, I think all this, discussion about communication and community engagement is really important. The part of the school that, I'm, really focused on is develop and execute budget that supports the district's goals and long-term financial stability. This budget, from what I can tell, is riddled with, well, we cut that last time and now we have to make up for it. And, well, we got behind on that and we didn't fund that. And, I think that, focusing on the long-term implications of some of these decisions, right? Some of the kind of cursory discussions about things that could be cut are actually cost-saving measures for the district in the long run. And I think that success looks like having a budget that's sustainable and doesn't further put us in a hole year over year.
We're working any of that in anywhere, Dr. Willett?
Yeah.
So, the expectation or condition for success, can you restate it just so I can?
That the budget is sustainable year over year and prioritizes long-term cost saving measures.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jean.
I fully support everything Mackenzie just said, so that one's that. The second thing is, hey, no problem. The second thing is, the positive feedback from the community. I do like that. My question is, what quantifies positive, or qualify, whichever works. We get, and you'll get, there's emails where, I appreciate how well you guys work together and I'm grateful for the timeline and how quickly you got this done. I hate the budget. It's awful. Shame on you for passing this. So that's where we would just have to flesh out for my brain of, I'm a visual learner. So I just have to try to map out where positive, negative, where they are individually located, and then where's the sort of split. Or we don't necessarily include the positive, but we focus on the feedback part of it. I don't know. So I was just going back to that point, Elaine, because I like it. I just don't know. Again, I need a way to digest it is the best
I
way.
felt like Elaine was, okay. I felt like you were kind of talking about how the budget is communicated.
Yes,
And
so it's
that,
not, positive, hey, we like it.
We like it. It's, gotcha.
Nobody wants to spend more money.
Right,
Nobody's gonna be happy,
right.
right? None of us have an unlimited fund, right? If you do, I'd like to meet you. So exactly, that's where I was gonna go with that. I think by positive feedback, in the trust. Do you trust us? Do you trust the process? Not necessarily me as a person. Do you trust me? Do you trust the process? Do you trust what we did as a board? Do you trust that we really, are trying to put forth the best that we can for our students, our teachers, and our taxpayers, the
Sure.
whole group?
Sure.
So I think that's where, you hate the budget all you want.
But what's the process?
Do you trust
Got
what, yes, I think, and then what Bill had said about doing the town last, couldn't that go under number 2 for that goal?
Mm.
Right, I mean, is that a way to support and,
Go for, yeah, explore further communication methods,
right,
such, I don't know, ever being specific there, such as, town blast.
blast of, yeah.
Which one? Which goal?
First goal,
The first goal,
column 2.
Their school,
To trust.
Okay.
or matching up with expectation to.
Oh, it's gonna be purple.
and then I think, maybe for the indication of success, maybe adjust, for positive feedback from the community, maybe positive feedback regarding, public trust in the budget process.
Yeah. Now, it depends on how smart bully you want to get. But you could say that 80% of the feedback you receive is positive. I mean, that's a very rough, set a baseline, or you can just generalize and say, that your goal is to have generally positive.
80%, that's something. Have you been on Facebook lately?
I know, well, I'm just saying.
Today.
Hang on, Jake,
I think that relates to, I agree with it. It gives us a quantifiable sort of number there. My thing is, where's the feedback coming from? There's forums that I've never looked at in my life, and how am I supposed to know that is included in our numbers, right? So
Yeah.
as much as I
You're right,
want to get
yeah.
specific, are we talking about correspondence directly to our board emails? Are we talking about,
Yes.
what exactly are we discussing there? And then I can get more comfortable with
That's-
measuring.
Right, I would think direct feedback, direct, email to the board or public participation at a meeting. That's really all.
Yeah.
We're not gonna count,
Accounts on
Facebook
Facebook.
Yeah, no.
we got 37 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Well, 37
I was gonna say, take 37, but now the question is, who does that fall on to measure, right? Is that another job for Dr. Willett? In that case, that's not fair, in my opinion, right? So, or is that another job for the secretary? That's not fair, right? So who, what, when, where, why, how?
No, I think we've bucketed things in the past. I know the town council has
Yeah.
done that too. So, I think the secretary could probably look at that and, during the budget process at how many positives versus negative.
Well, and I already have a spreadsheet,
Oh, great.
for that, because we are going to get inundated with
Hopefully.
budget emails.
Mhm.
So, I do have that because regular weekly or bi-weekly correspondence is typically pretty attainable, but when you start with budget season, your email is gonna be blowing.
Right.
So 100%, we want to be able to talk about what the actual feedback is regarding that, what our town people are saying to us and what they want to see us doing.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll be happy to do that. I think I'm happier when there is more correspondence across the board, because that means people are paying attention and getting involved, whether it's budget or not. So I do, implore people to continue to reach out, and I think it goes in ebbs and flows.
True.
For sure.
Okay.
80%.
So do you want to say the majority of feedback from the community, like the majority?
Well, it could be
Simple majority.
People select so much though, right? the vast majority of people that are gonna have the energy to reach out and complain. I mean, that's a kind of standard customer
Right.
service. Right?
People that are reaching out are more often.
They're more apt to fill out a.
And that's not just
survey
this,
with
it's-
you
it's
than
a
they
lot
are
of
your ACEs, you know?
Well, in business, you guys are.
I think that we're in a position to put like, because I would almost look at it as like an increase, but we didn't measure it last year, so maybe we start here this year and then we can look at it if there's an increase next year. Do we have any ideas on what we would need to gain community support? That's. I think that would be increased communication measures.
Consistent communication.
Consistent, that's a great, yeah. I'm just letting him catch up.
I'm just raising my hand higher every time you see me.
Yeah, it's 3 on the list so far. Although I don't know if you are first or Joelle is first. Joelle.
Along with what you just said, as far as increased communications, encourage, and that increased communication methods, encourage people to continue to come during this period.
Participation.
Yeah.
Participation,
Encourage public participation.
yeah, and not just here, but in the town council process also.
And then could you add, Jaden had mentioned consistent, so could you add consistent communication?
It's to encourage public participation.
Mm-hmm.
And then say,
Consistent communication?
The thought behind that is we have things that go out, right? But maybe, if I know it's coming out every week, I get this, whatever. Again, does that create more work for somebody? That's, we can flesh that out, but safety helps, it just helps everybody.
Yeah, if you didn't catch it last week, you'll catch it next week.
Yeah.
Did you had your hand up, did you have more? No,
No,
okay,
actually.
yeah.
And I don't, and forgive me, Brian, if you already discussed this and already started with communications, but last year, didn't we like have a charge of like the ticker kind of thing that we had on the main screen?
Yeah, the ask a budget question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Are we
still there.
Redoing that again?
Yeah, it should still be there.
Okay.
I think it was left up all year, or,
Like, didn't we have like when you went onto the homepage, it was like
It was the bulletin.
it was a
right on the
bulletin,
top,
like a ticker.
and you could click it. Right?
what was it?
It was like right here, when you logged in, it said, ask a question about the budget or something.
Oh, it should be on the superintendent's. page,
Yeah, it's on
I
the
think.
super
Okay.
button bulletin.
And then there's, yeah, I think it's on the superintendent's page.
Okay.
Were you talking about wanting it on each specific school page as well, or?
I don't know, I just think it's something we could talk about, but I thought it was on the, when I log in to the Tolland Board of Education website, it brings me to not the superintendent, it brings me to the district screen. And I
Well,
thought we had
the
something on the
website-
screen that said, ask the budget question. Could
Yes, I understand what you're saying, because it just happened to me now.
It's not a bad idea.
It did?
Like, it just went to the Tolland Public Schools page and not to the,
Yeah,
because I had the superintendent's bookmark here and still says bookmark for Superintendent Willis page. I guess it is, but it's not on that page. We're just in the committee meeting yet last week. It was,
It's not on anything.
it's on the Tolland.K12.ct.us, just plain website page,
so I'm not.
not the superintendent's page.
it's on the upper right-hand side of the menu bar of the superintendent's page.
Yeah,
But
Maybe we could add it to the digital backpack.
Submit.
yeah, it's on the main,
Yeah,
yeah, it's on the main
See it.
page. It's on the main page. Yeah,
I'm not on that page. Okay.
that's just the normal, that one's nobody's page, that's just the district.
The landing page.
Yeah, the landing
I was
page,
heading
yeah.
to Board of Education. Okay.
It's okay, I typed in the superintendent and it confused me.
Mackenzie, go ahead.
I was just gonna make a general suggestion now that we're kind of working through this first goal. This particular activity is not something that I personally did my homework on and put thoughts together on what I would put in each box and what my recommendations would be. And I think we're throwing out a lot of great suggestions. And now that, some of us new folks have kind of worked through the first one or thereabouts with the greater team, could we perhaps maybe take some time to go back and do some more work on our own and bring maybe some more concise conversation about this and give it the time that it deserves. I know that we're all eager to get to the budget discussion.
Yeah. So great idea. I was gonna let us go through and then say, you know, if we want to take this home and do a bit more. But I'm happy to table this now, as long as we can with the schedule. Well, we would just have to, you know, we could come up with our ideas, or we could even put them in a Google form or something like that to submit to you, and then we would just have to go over them at our next meeting.
Yeah, I can create a Google form that has, you know, it has the goal and then the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and then we could enter them in and regroup in the next meeting. Maybe it would be a little bit faster of a process.
Yeah, or you could push it to behind February 11th if you want to.
And
Because you probably need another budget meeting next week.
Yep.
And then you need a February 4th one and you need February 11th one, and you might, maybe this happens.
will
for the
this
first
disrupt
meeting.
our timeline for superintendent goals?
I mean, look, you're a new board and you already have goals, pretty amazing. So these expanded articulations, if you're doing it late February, early March, then I can work off that. So no, it should be okay. It's just these goals that we'd be creating would be for the coming, you obviously between March, April, May, I won't have much time to,
Right.
do that. These goals are really for a year, for the coming year.
I know
or
you're
even two.
particularly concerned with timelines.
Right.
Is that
Sure.
okay with you?
I'm definitely okay with that. It's not fair to you, even if we come up with superintendent goals now, to have the expectation of you accomplishing them
Right.
for your evaluation this summer. That's not realistic. It's not fair to you. So anything we come up with for you, in my mind, is really not for this evaluation. It's for the next one.
Is
So
any,
you could put this behind your budget process, I mean, at least behind the Board of Ed adopted budget, and we can start really doing that right after February 11th, if you want.
is anyone opposed to doing that? Seeing none. Okay, so why don't we do that? Why don't we, Dr. Willett, if you could put together a Google form and all that spare time that you have and put it on the dashboard.
But after February 5th, right?
Sure,
Because you'll be focused mostly on
sure.
questions. I mean, 11th, after February 11th.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I think very similarly to Bill in the sense of, the timelines, we gotta start hitting our timelines and whatnot, this darn board, but this completely makes sense it obviously makes sense. Would we get an updated timeline of when we should be done, and so then we can follow anew? I just wanna make sure that we're, not necessarily just pushing it off and hoping we get it done and, it gets done when it gets done. I hope there's some form of a new timeline is all I'm asking for. What we should expect and when we can get it.
What would be the meeting following the February 11th one? So that would be, I think, the 25th. So we could say that,
That'll be the date.
we would complete this on the 25th.
Okay.
Is that, Dr. Will, is there anything big in that time that you think could?
Well, that's really up to you. If we release the Google form on February 11th, that gives you, the 12th through the 24th to submit.
I think that's plenty of time, especially since we have.
Maybe
this.
the 23rd.
Got it in your whole process at any time, then take notes and then have them ready for when you want it.
So you'll be the one doing the lifting on that. I'll need maybe a day to compile it all.
Okay,
So,
all right. Go ahead, Brian.
And we have the Google form this week, or next week put out to us, just so if people wanna do it in 3 days after you put it out, or people wanna wait 3 weeks and then do it, just.
I think that he was looking for himself he's gonna be doing a lot of budget. But if,
I didn't know how long it takes to make that just a Google sheet.
I
is what I'm
don't know,
asking.
that takes-
Well,
I don't
to
know.
make a fast one doesn't take long, but to make one that you might not find very painful, might take a little longer.
I think, why don't we just give him some time, and if he can get it to us earlier than that, great.
Yeah, I'm not
Now
saying
we'll
tomorrow,
have-
but maybe.
Yeah,
But I don't know, what I'd love to know is if I did, because I can dedicate time wherever you want me to, but I assume where you want most of my time to go is in
I
that
do.
BQ answering the questions, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
But if I created it,
The 10-minute thing.
as long as you guys
no, I think,
would submit it.
Yeah, I just, I want to.
I think
The day
if
before?
you're to give us that form, maybe the 12th or the 13th, after we get the budget in. We still have 2 weeks to do it. Again, you can still get to this data and you can write down, your notes on it.
That's fine.
I think that's fair. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Can I just make a quick suggestion?
Yep.
And then I have another statement.
Okay.
If we could just get a copy of the file that you were typing in, Dr. Willett, and then the Google form could just be a place for us to upload our file.
Yeah, you have access to this one that I'm
Okay.
putting in.
So
It's actually that big, that step 5 is this document.
label them and all put our thoughts into one.
I don't think we should do that.
Okay.
I think we should wait for the Google form before we input anything, but we can view what he's already written.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually step 5 in that portal.
Mhm.
You have it, and it's the dashboard has that running, when I do those BOE dashboard updates, this is one of them. So it looks like this.
Yeah.
Basically. This is what
Yeah.
you're looking
Yeah, I
for.
found that.
It looks like we're all in.
And that's step 5. If you
Yeah,
look
my
at step
suggestion was just to
5,
make the Google form so that we could upload our own file and not put it all in the Google form.
I can definitely have it so you can upload your own file. You will then have 9 files to review. Or I can try to consolidate from 9 files, but I'll need it all in the same text format.
Yeah. I think we should just- Yeah.
Think I'm making a suggestion.
Thank you.
And I will note that I'll be out of the country on February 25th, so
No, so you're giving us homework that you want.
I really wanted to do the homework and I will do the homework, but I'm leaving the country on February.
Good for you. All right, so
So we'll table the activity update of one to help you consolidate those, and then we'll jump back on the horse figure.
all right.
All right.
Let's jump into budget.
Okay.
Thank you for the suggestion, Mackenzie. Bill may have also suggested it quietly.
Try not to disrupt.
You're always free to make suggestions before the meeting.
Make it.
I don't think they kind of knew what was happening.
No, I didn't either, so I'm very teasing, I'm very teasing, but I think Mackenzie's right, I think that we did the first one together was actually a really helpful activity.
Yeah.
For new members and old, so, I think it works out perfectly, so thank you, it was the right time.
Right.
Alright. Dr. Litch, you wanna begin with anything or just jump right into?
Well, I guess, I'm just opening it all. So, for this particular part of the process, you have access to, these things from the dashboard. There's the FAQ. I did send, and post, those budget scenarios are also on your updates. You have access to the document. So I guess, for me, just throwing it out there, I think it would be in your best interest to set up a meeting next week, make a motion to add a meeting or instruct me to create a special meeting for you next Wednesday, 7:00. It may be here, but we could also actually do it in my office if you wanted to. We have chairs for public if they wanted to come, but it's a tighter environment, mine, and we have some control over some of the monitors and so on. But regardless of where it is, and you can let me know where you want it, I'd recommend today, if you can, but I don't want to take any thunder from you, Madam Chair. I'd recommend that you come up with some directive to me. For instance, would you like to see 3 scenarios, of different budget iterations? Would you like to see those by next Wednesday, so that when you come into next Wednesday's meeting, you can consider some scenarios? You're 2 weeks away from the publication of your budget document. So I need next week at the end of that meeting to know what you're going to do. So if you, tell me to come up with, scenario A, B, and C, I'll go off and do that this coming week, as well as answering your questions. And then you can, deliberate on A, B, and C, next week and make a decision, and then I'll create your booklets.
Okay. So first, if we'd like to, take a vote on adding an additional meeting, can we do that now, or do we need to move that to board action?
You could add that item to board action, and then you can, someone makes a motion to add that meeting. Second, discuss it. and vote on it, and then you can have it.
Well, we gotta add it to board action first, so it's 2 votes.
Yes.
Yeah. Motion.
I'll
to add-
entertain a motion to add a meeting on February 4th.
Yeah, the topic of that in meeting on February 4th, support action. I'll second that.
Don't we have to make a motion?
No, we got a motion to move it to board action.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Right.
Motion is, well, no, the first one,
The first motion is,
to add the meeting to board action, the topic of the meeting, February 4th, board action. And then in that, you will then vote on the.
So I make a motion to move to add an additional meeting of February 4th for the purpose of budget discussion to board action.
So that
There you go.
topic to board action.
okay, Jaden seconded, make sure for the video.
At 7, oh, it's just board action.
Yeah, any discussion? Okay, any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? No? Okay, so that unanimously passes, so that will be board action
Do we need to note N1?
and 1. And a book of, yeah, sorry. Okay, so then, so second, yes, so, as Dr. Willett explained, what's helpful at the end of this meeting is if we can give him something to work towards, right, for us to review at the next meeting. Because at the next meeting, we will have to come pretty close to a decision to be able to hand this off February 11th, after our meeting to the town manager. So, what I would like to do is, you know, I think 3 scenarios probably sounds about right. But I'd like to have our discussion first and see what fleshes out. I am not someone who likes to just throw percentages out and just work towards those percentages, because I think that there's so much more that goes into our decisions. And I think for our staff and our families watching, they want to see that we're also making decisions based on, you know, certain programs and whatnot for school and staffing levels, et cetera. So let's see where we get to in the conversation. And then, you know, I'll probably give a cutoff at some point and maybe see where we are. Maybe it's really easy and we already know kind of what we're going to flesh out for the different scenarios. Or maybe we have to have a more difficult conversation, or maybe we do have to go for some percentages, but we will not be held to those things. They're just scenarios that Dr. Willett should work. All right, so why don't I open the floor up? I'm not gonna go in order because I don't think that's fair, but if you want to raise your hand, I can write it down in the order that you raise your hand as we go. And then just, and then, you know, you can ask any questions at that time or any comments, and then anything that will go around once and give everybody a chance, and then we can go around for a second round. Okay. So Mackenzie, I saw your hand up first.
Thank you. I, first wanted to say, right, I appreciate all of the work that went into putting this budget together, and very much appreciated the time with the administrators last week to better understand some of the details in the budget. Like I said earlier, right, it's clear to me that there have been areas where, frankly, we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's time to pay Peter back, right? And we have a lot of opportunities to support the long-term health of our school system in this budget process. I will say one thing that I noticed as I was going through the details of the budget is that there are things in this operating budget that I would expect to be capital expenses. And the first one that comes to mind is, of course, the Windows 11 desktops. Those should be something that are capital and are depreciated over time. But I've also done a little bit of research on, things like textbooks and things like that. And those are, can be considered capital expenditures, right? They're not one-time purchases, they're used year over year. And so there's also some groupings, and I put some of these in the questions. But there's some groupings of, a lot of lines that say supplies and materials, right? And so I'd love some clarity on what is in supplies and materials. And it's like almost every department has supplies and materials, and looking at, like the library has periodicals and computers and things like that, right? I would really love to see a breakdown of what's included in there and, if there's portions of that that could be forwarded to a capital budget. My strong recommendation to do so.
Yeah, just point of order. You, your capital budget process starts in August and ends in October. So it has to be accepted. You can ask for something to be added to capital, but it's a request. And that ends in October. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to count on something
Okay.
being moved to capital for the timeline you're in. But you could when we do capital next time, because we started FFC in August with that. We present some things, you can have things added to it from August, in September, starting in FFC. Then we publish something to you in October, and then that goes over to the town in October.
I know.
Those of you who have been, on the board, you remember that's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you,
it wouldn't be able to impact your budget, because it's already over there.
do have some thoughts on that, but I'm gonna wait on there. But, I think Mackenzie was also asking, I don't know if you could give any kind of, overview of what the material.
Best thing to do there is to submit it as a question,
You did, yeah.
Yeah. and then we'll cover it. Specific, like what's running here with the
That's
We'll give you a narrative on exactly what it is.
Go ahead. That,
The floor's still yours.
no, good. That was your major.
Okay.
Great. For question 10, I asked about the athletic and student transportation. And in your response, you said fiscal year 26, which is this year, 107,000 is budgeted. But in the budget book we've got, it says 132,000 is the budget for this year.
It's from the FFC line, so the one that's in our budget booklet probably rolls up more than that. I pulled the 107 from the FFC 516 breakout line. So,
So
it's probably the one that's in that, the one we have is a roll up, it includes more than one line, so I'll just have to, pull that roll up line. I refer to 107 out of the FFC booklet, 516, which is an extrapolation, that's like 3 or 4 pages, so originally I didn't have 107 in there, I thought I would pull it out of the FFC, but I probably should have just stuck with what you guys have.
All right, so then I'll ask my question.
But we've already reached, we're already beyond that, what we budgeted.
So how are we already beyond 132,000 when we don't have a boys freshman basketball team? Then we had 2 JV football games. I understand soccer went longer than anticipated and there was expenses with that. The reality is with numbers, we're more than likely not gonna have a boys freshman baseball team. That's a lot of teams that aren't using transportation. And I think that more than compensates for the soccer team and all of their successes. So I'm just concerned that we're already over 132. When that's what was budgeted, and we've got 3 fewer teams that are using the transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I would point to that it increases every year. I'd point that JV freshman teams don't travel as much as varsity teams. Probably, whenever you have tournaments or schedules, mileage differences. I mean, it's like, if you look at fiscal year 25, the actual is 140, that's actual. That is what was spent. So that is the figure we are spending for those athletic transports, and there are invoices that add up to it. So, I've just, I think it is a combination of mileage, combination of, when the schedules, they probably have shifted in some way that means that we have to run them, pickups, drop-offs, number of buses available. Our number of buses went down 4 by 4 over a span of time. So maybe the bus has to sit and wait now. Maybe there's less frequency of being able to turn around and come back. But it's probably a combination of factors, but it is definitely what we are spending.
When we create this transportation budget for athletics, do we look at sports schedules?
Yeah. And we look at
To
trends.
see how far we're traveling? Cause I know we had, the varsity football team had a long game. Was it Arlo? Is that the hour and a half trip out there. Yeah, so I know we had that, but we are, when we create that budget, we're looking at, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
the schedules.
schedules are matched up with CIAC.
Sure.
So we do what we have to do to match up with them, and it is probably just in, you know, the mileage and all of the associated costs with that type of thing. So, but I can tell you that that is the actual, and I pulled the FFC figure for the 107. It does add up to like 139 or something, you know.
So we're about 7,000 over.
Yeah, we're gonna probably hit that 140.
Okay,
Probably, we're riding into 139 right now. That's why I said we anticipate overspending the line by 22. It's probably gonna be upwards of into the, you know, 129, 22 to 30. It's gonna probably end up somewhere in 129 to 139 range as it looks for now.
we're proposing to jump another $60,000 to 192 for next year.
Well,
I understand some of that is gonna be the 5% increase in the transportation contract. I understand that, but I'm not seeing where, you know, anything more than that 5% increase, which is a fixed cost.
yeah, I would say we're at least gonna spend the 140.
I agree.
So.
If that's what we spent this year, I agree.
But I would have to go back to page 21, 516 to see if, you know, if you can make reductions to any line you want me to make reductions to. We've done that before. We've done it with legal. We've done it with all kinds of things. You know, when we do that, sometimes we end up spending more than the line, which is what we're doing in a lot of cases right now. But I was looking at the trend documents that I have for 14, 15 and now. So I mean, I know that it's going up. I know that we were 140 last year. I know we're projected between 129 and 139 now. And if you want me to cut from a particular line, I can. But I have to go back and see what the roll up is, because I think
It's not a matter of us wanting to cut from any line. It's a matter of making sure that the information we have here is accurate. Fuel cost is less this year than it was last year. Am I wrong in that?
I don't think
Or do we contract in
I
that
don't think
per
we can
gallon?
count on that.
Okay, we're right, but
But you know, the contract for the bus will be 5%.
will be 5%. And
You know,
that's why I say when,
Probably the scheduling and the mileage and the projections on what that trend is. You know, like for the.
I just have with less sports teams, because numbers next year don't look any different than this year when it comes to the athletic teams with the eighth graders that are coming in. So more likely than not, we're not gonna have a freshman basketball team for boys. More likely than not, we're not gonna have a JV football season. And more likely than not, we're not gonna have a freshman boys baseball team. So those are three sports teams that aren't gonna be traveling because they won't exist. And I have a hard time thinking that we would increase anything more than the 5% that the transportation contract increases and not be pretty accurate.
That 516 is a roll up. So give me a minute and I can tell
Okay.
you what's rolling up into that, because it's not just there in that one, that object page
Actually.
is a one page or roll up of different lines. So we're not talking about that 107 figure I gave you was a single line.
Right there.
This is a roll up of, it's student, see how it's student
Yeah,
activity
student activity.
transport.
Yeah, and you say that in the response.
So there's more in there than that's combined. We're comparing a little bit of apples to, you know, oranges, because I was giving you strictly athletics.
Mhm.
So 516 has a roll up. I just have to figure out what those lines are, and then I'll kind of tell you what rolls into that. And I'll add to that answer,
Okay,
because it's actually, you're not looking at that 140 is athletics, not what's in this. That one pager rolls up more than that.
Yeah, I just shown the FFC, exact
Yeah,
detail.
I pulled it from FFC because that's our larger, that is more narrowly athletic.
Yes.
But I'll figure that out and I'll expand that answer.
okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let me just expand that. Expand.
I appreciated your response on open choice. I guess I wasn't aware of that timing of of when kids are accepted. So I think that totally makes sense. The one thing that I would suggest is, and you mentioned Facebook ads. I regularly on my Facebook get ads for some of these other schools. Is that something that we're doing when you mention Facebook, or are you just talking about posting on the Risco accounts and their resources?
I am saying, we'll scour out to find every group we can join
Mhm.
and then join any group associated.
And just
with it.
start putting ads on
Just
this.
start, putting in, peppering in any kind of, ads that we can into any Resco pages or publish. If we become friends or
Sure.
then anything we
Members of their-
publish will sometimes show up in their feeds. And that's what we want to start to do is be more aggressive in our social media stuff.
So the nice thing about Facebook marketing is you can target zip codes, you can target age groups, you can target those things so that as someone is doom scrolling on their Facebook, all of a sudden a Tolland Open Choice Public Schools ad will pop up. And it certainly is a little bit of money investment. But I think that that's something that could certainly help our endeavor to fill those 5 seats per grade, those 15 seats every year, as opposed to not seeing those seats filled. And I don't know if that's something that, we as a board can look at allocating some funds from the ERF to look at, putting $5,000 for Facebook marketing ad for Open Choice. And really start targeting, just because it's real easy to do that with Facebook and target specific areas and age groups. So that's something that maybe that's something that goes on for another discussion.
That, as you're saying, it does cost money to
Yep.
use those tools.
Yep.
But we can, spend that out of our advertising and maybe run over a little bit. But
Okay.
that's my thought, is to be more aggressive and start to use things like that. I mean, some of the districts put ads on billboards and put ads in.
Right, go there.
People joke about this, but
Yeah,
I've said it before, in the movie theaters, they do actually, if you've been in a movie theater, sometimes you'll see the crack races,
Right, so, that's something that, I don't know when we should make that discussion and that determination. Yeah, I'm good for bringing enough time.
Elaine.
Oh, so this doesn't last long. Okay, yeah. I was waiting for my pager. So I know there was already a question and you kind of addressed it, question 9 about the stipends. Does any of that increase in stipends include the clubs? Because I know there had been a conversation
No.
about possibly putting clubs, so
No,
anywhere in this budget are the clubs put back in?
the clubs in my budget, the clubs are put back to the way they were handled last year at a reduced cost. So parent guardians still pay. So actually, I answered that wrong. The clubs are put back to our previous model for clubs. So more money is allocated to clubs in our previous years than it was in this fiscal year. So yes, it is coming back. Stipends. Now, they're still offset by pay to participation fees. So the board pays, the more of it though. And it's putting it back because people said they hated the way it was this year. So I'm giving the board the opportunity to put it back the way it was in fiscal year 24, for instance, or use the model that I'm using now, which is more expense to parent guardians for. So yes, it is actually putting more money into the stipends for them. Now, it might be, that line, I have to go and let you know all the lines. That particular line is driven up by the ones I articulated there. I don't think that's a club stipend line. I have to look at it. The club stipends by themselves do cost quite a bit. You spend a lot on clubs, and activities to fund it the way it used to be.
So I'm gonna set the unpopular opinion of possibly recommending when you give us other budget scenarios, could it possibly include one where those are out?
Yes, and in fact, I think when I gave you the, let me see if it's in there.
You did.
Said we're
First one.
If you look, if you look at the SPB potential reduction, you'll see that the clubs and costs. In this, I gave you, 3 color codes, red, blue, gray. And, I would expand on this based on what you want and create some spreadsheets. Based on what you want for your potential targets for next time. But in that, SPB draft reduction scenarios, and that is in your, running, Board of Ed dashboard stuff, if you go to the updates, you see that reduction of clubs and activities at the top, that would be going back to the model we have this year. And you'd be able to reduce almost 100,000, 93,000.
Okay.
But it is different than the transportation thing and those other, that's different. That's not the clubs it has a similar thing. But like the one, but this is the kind of clubs and activities you're thinking about when you think of Model United Nations and, things like that. We actually would, so. I'm gonna try not to be too verbose in this. Transportation club is actually just covering the kids who haven't been picked up or their buses. And if we don't do that, you'll end up paying more because there's only a certain number of ways we can cover that. And that's actually one of the cheaper ways to cover it. So it's a mechanism as a cost avoidance factor. So we wouldn't want to, necessarily jettison that too quick because
Right, yeah.
on paper, it looks like we're saving, but we're not.
No, that club, I wasn't even, I understood what that was for.
But what I will do is if you, for instance, if you're giving me sort of my marching orders for certain targets for next week, I would come up with scenarios that go deeper into some other things, But in this case, these scenarios can bring you down to that 7.9. That's how this particular spreadsheet works. But that's some examples of things you could consider, in the red, the blue, and the gray. And then I would do something similar for you next week, where if you gave me targets, I would create, this is what this one looks like, this is what this one looks like, this is what this one looks like. And those of you remember at the tail end of last year, when we were getting to the final stage, I set up a spreadsheet and we moved things in and out as the discussion transpires. But you're at a stage where you're just kind of getting the basic targets you want me to hit. So anyway, to long-winded answer there, it's about 93,000 if you were to go back to where we are this versus what we used to have. If we're talking strictly clubs like Model UN.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else right now, Elaine?
No, not right now.
Okay. Brian, you were next.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so, well, I just wanted to touch base and see what your, kind of thoughts and what direction, the district is going to be going, or if you have any feedback to us regarding the, vote of the disbanding of the E-chip program at the end of this year. I know there's like a supplemental, reserve account that I remember last year, one of the FFC meetings, I wasn't a part of it. I was a spectator. There was discussion about the fund, the reserve fund that you had a tally going of, what you felt the town's portion of that fund was and our portion and how we feel that the rates might be affected with the state plan or a private plan or just kind of some general, I don't know. I know you don't have any details on probably 90% of what I just said, but any sort of just information to us regarding where you possibly see this number that we're kind of working with that most likely isn't going to be at that number, if it's going to be less or more, or what your thoughts are. I'd appreciate that.
Sure. We, and I think that'd be also a great topic for FFC to drill down into even deeper, but, we, probably looking at about a 14% next year, probably looking at, the town and the board are looking at options. And that conversation is happening in the next 30 days as we start to figure out what's going on. Egypt, as they say, everything that has a beginning has an end, and Egypt had a good run. The state plan is pulling people to it, like a black hole, but it's pulling people to it. So that's where everybody's going. The members have decided, many of them, that they want to go to the state plan or something like it. So that's essentially what's driving this change. And there is a reserve fund that the town and the board, in cooperation over the years, we have this reserve fund. As the Egypt entity separates, there will be a legal separation agreement, and there will be a determination on or around June 30th of what everyone's walk away amount is with that. So we won't really know until the legal separation agreement is completely executed. I'll have a better idea in 2 months of what that looks like, but we won't actually have the ability to act in any way on that until June 30th. So those funds, when they are something that, we can act on, will likely go and stay in some health reserve area for us so that it can help us offset fluctuations into the future. It is still our reserve money. But now the fluctuations that we'll be looking at would be fluctuations from the state plan. Like if we have a terrible year, maybe we could use some of the funds to offset the terrible year. And it won't last forever. So that's basically the timeline. Is within about 60 days, we'll have a better idea of what the separation agreement looks like. And by June 30th, we hope to be able to have the complete separation of our funds. And then we'll see what happens from there. It probably will not help us much for this budget season. Because there's some uncertainties with that.
So you had just put out a number of 14%. So are you gauging we have a 14% increase in insurance costs?
Yeah,
So we have a 3% now, so you're expecting another $600,000 potentially added to this health insurance line item?
If you remember, the insurance is one of the most complicated ones to answer. And what I would do is submit a question so I can extrapolate everything. Because there's a bunch of lines of insurance, there's a bunch of places where it hits. So the state plan is throwing out things like 14%. And we're trying to figure out what the reality is. And between now and, Board of Ed adopted, we'll have hopefully a better idea too. But I would put a question in there about insurance, and I'll break the line down like I did last time, so you can see how the percentage works out. Because it is more difficult than like my one sentence answer here. I would have to extrapolate the whole thing for you. So a good question for that would be, can you talk about what our percentage increase is for insurance and break it down for us? And then I'll break the thing down like I did last.
So, okay, I'll put the question in, but so we have 3% now. Do you figure that's still being around the 3%, just so everyone here at the table is understanding of the figures that we're trying to deal with?
Well, if you're referring to
We gotta make a decision.
object page. Yeah, if you're referring to the object page.
I'm actually just referring, yes.
Yeah.
Object, let's
So
see,
you're that-
202. Object 202. The 6.3, or I apologize. It's 6 point, almost 8 now, and you're looking at a 7.05 or the 7 million flat more or less.
Yeah, I use a percentage about what it costs us. That's the overall cost to our budget. So 3% is right, but like I said, like the increase to our people will probably be 14%, even though the increase to our budget is, 3%, because it's a figure of millions. So
You're sticking with this 3%,
that figure is a real figure for our budget.
even with the disbanding.
Yeah, but people like me, we might see an increase that's bigger than that as an employee, depending on, there are different figures when we talk about insurance. This amount is what you can expect right now for our budget in terms of what we budget.
Yeah, I was trying to get for the taxpayer, what we're asking of the taxpayer.
Your increase in insurance is that from last year to this year for our budget.
200,000.
Budget purposes is that amount there.
Okay, all right.
And that does break out into a few lines, but there are different, when we talk about insurance percentage, the average individual here may see a much bigger increase than what, you're seeing on that, because we're talking about board portion, employee portion, all of those things. So the state plan is going to expect more of maybe
More what?
the employee like me. I might have a, like our share, all of that is a breakdown of how it works. And, we would have to get, I can break that all out. So you can see how it impacts all of the different groups and, like I did last time. But your dollar amount for our budget will be that.
No, I understand what he's saying. I'm just.
So your budget impact is that 3%, and that's a roll up line, and that is where it is right now. We expect it to be that. We haven't had all of our insurance meetings yet. We're early,
Yes.
so that could impact it a little bit, but that is the projection right now.
Okay, I just want to
I
make
don't
sure
think
we're
it'll
still
jump up
good with
to
the
8.
cancellation of Egypt to going with possible state or something else. That this number is still gonna be what we're all here in the room looking at moving forward for these next 3 or 4 weeks. So I'll move on. Thank you. I'm all done for now.
So I'm going to go to Jane next.
Sure. I guess I'll start just by sort of recapping. I mean, I hope you were all able to get to the tables I got to, even though I got there last week, because it was, again, it's this eye-opening experience of, well, I work in a school and holy cow, you're going through it right now. So, and so, I mean, there was tidbits dropped, I mean, all night. The middle school right now is down 0.5 of a licensed practitioner nurse. Last year they had a full-time RN, full-time LPN. This year there's half an LPN, full-time RN who's not even there half the time, who's also a supervisor of some kind, which I was trying to wrap my brain around. So we've got people sort of in and out of our building. So the security part of our goal setting that we're talking about, I mean, it starts with even 0.5 of a nurse position. We lost the library media specialist. And now that position is, running up to THS at noon and leaves TMS at 12 o'clock. We lost 0.5 of a world language. So we can't offer Spanish and French to 8th graders. And I guess the person who left was a student favorite, teacher. And I didn't spell it right, so I'm not even going to try to say it right, but, he ended up going to a rival, E.O. Smith. And is now excelling at a school down the road.
That would be Mr. Solis.
Say it again?
Solis.
Solis, okay. So Senor Solis,
that's
right? So, and I guarantee you, if you say that name, so many students are probably saying, oh my gosh, that's Mr. He went to where? So it's just we talk about morale a lot, Bill and I, a lot. And I can tell you, outside of sports, it's your favorite teachers that we're driving out that just drive me nuts. Anyway, so let's see. I mean, we've got admin stepping into roles to support high classrooms with large amounts of students. Social workers doing the job, or counselors doing the jobs of social workers, because we don't have any social workers at TMS. There's a lot, and that's, by the way, that's just one school, and I mean, it just continues. It continues. So there's a lot that I think needs to be investigated in terms of are we providing what we need to provide at the rate we need to provide it? So a few questions. The insurance, just to clarifying, this is a yes or no, Dr. Litt. I won't ask you to go further into it. Just on Brian's point with the whole insurance understanding. So on the Board of Ed side, the increase that the board would be expected to cover is 3%. Whereas every employee, or at least those who it applies to, on their end, their insurance costs are increased by 14%. So those are two different figures.
You're going from a factor of what you budgeted prior to what you budgeted now, which is a little different than what the individual may face. Yes, your dollars are 3.05%.
Yes. Thank you.
As we, asterisk, we haven't met, we have to meet with locked in.
Understood. As it currently, understood.
That's what we know right now.
At the middle school level, right now, they were talking about, in grade 6, they're teaching digital footprint, which I find fascinating.
Yes.
Algorithms in grade 7, and full coding and AI literacy in grade 8. Number one, my question is, what tech are they learning this on? Are these the desktops that are in a computer ed type of room, or are these the laptops that would be discussed in these tech reductions
Other
here.
than like, we are almost completely dependent on the laptop Chromebooks now. Laptops in high school, Chromebooks, okay, are three.
So all of that curriculum that has been developed, and by the way, I believe rather recently, based on what was being shared during the rounds, the team at the middle school level is coordinating the different types of media literacy amongst kids that are students, excuse me, that would, by reducing this tech line here, by reducing the ability to provide tech for students, are we also getting close to sort of indirectly forcing the hand of the curriculum supervisors to now update the curriculum based on the available tech? Loaded question.
Yeah, no, it's a nuanced question. I think at the base of the question, to try to answer it succinctly, when we started the Ed Tech initiative, years and years ago,
Yep.
now, I think a little prior to COVID, through COVID, this, we transitioned away from labs.
Yeah.
We are very dependent upon those individual devices now. And the kids, that they work using those devices to work collaboratively with each other, whether they're in the same room or hundreds of miles away. So it reflects how it's done in the world. But we are definitely dependent on those laptop devices and Chromebook devices now. They have been completely integrated. And our labs, we do not have anywhere near the number of labs. I think now it's very paltry, one or two, and it's like photography and maybe CAD. And even then, I think we've transitioned away from that.
That's in the high school though.
Yeah, so there's really not a lot of desktop computers anymore. And they're getting more and more antiquated and being replaced. Like even that Windows plan has the teachers using their laptops with a monitor. The plan isn't to replace desktops. So it reflects the way things are done typically in the world. Most of the people are working and running around and collaborating and using SharePoint or Google, and that type of stuff. So it's, we're completely dependent upon it now, yeah.
So
It would be much bigger than one curriculum rewrite. It would be just a massive change in practice.
Gotcha. So our curriculum is dependent on a lot of these.
Our pedagogy is probably dependent. Our curriculum, utilizes and integrates, but the day-to-day practice in pedagogy it's just every day.
Okay.
And the kids use it every day in multiple classes.
Directly impacted by the tech line. Okay. And then I guess I do have a specific question for line 150, and you might have explained this already, and I'm sorry if I missed it. It's the stipend line. Can you go into why that? I mean, it almost doubles itself going from 213 to 399. That's 87%, blah, 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 blah. Can you explain, and somebody might have already, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing between here. Why that might have increased almost 2 times the size? I mean, is that because of what happened to clubs? Is that,
Well, we're putting everything, that put those back, so yeah.
Gotcha. So that's
It's
correct.
part of it. But if you're referring to the object page again, so there's the appendices which break things out more broadly. So sometimes when we're referring to a specific thing, there's places where it's rolled up and it's places where it's disaggregated. So if it's from the object page, that's a roll up. And one of the biggest chunks of that would be putting back clubs and activity. About $100,000 difference between last year and this year would be putting back the clubs the way they used to be funded.
So that line will reflect not the 25-26 budget. That might reflect more so to the 24-25.
This year was the new higher charge paradigm, which people had lots of opinions about. You heard some of the students talk about it. Last year, last fiscal year did not have that at a much lower rate. And as you recall, some of you are new, but our general philosophy was, if you didn't get it, you didn't punish the kid for it. Kids could show up and if for some reason the family never fully provided the funding, we didn't chase them down. We would make efforts to get it, but we wouldn't kick a child out of a club because someone failed to execute, what we had hoped they would execute. The difference this year is no one's in a club that hasn't paid or hasn't had the money provided by grant or donation. It's much more draconian. Now, if you're a child with FRL status, it's covered. But anyone outside of FRL status, it's no exceptions. So it is much different. And the timelines are very different because we have to collect all the funds before we will allow the club to move forward. That also didn't happen in the past. So these are some major differences from the point of view of, you had mentioned with DECA, it's the collection period and all that. It prevents them from moving forward a little bit sometimes. So while if we go to the old paradigm, I'm going to try to start collection in June of the previous year. If I can, even though people don't pay a lot of attention in June, for the kids moving up, except for 12th graders, I might send out, hey, are you interested in joining this for next year? If you are, please make your commitments as soon as possible so that when I get back in September, we have some signups to work with already, which will make that a little faster.
Yeah.
But the reality is, because we have to wait for the payments to come in, it takes time. And I have now worked with our chief financial officer to create a online methodology for doing that, like athletics. So people will be able to submit this through a debit card, which should help a little bit, so you don't have to run around. But we still have to wait for all of those to clear, so it will probably not really be until October. So yeah, about $100,000 difference, 93 to 100,000 is those clubs. And it's the way we approach it as a district. You can't do it until it's in versus get it in when you can. And the reality is we don't collect, as much when we do it that way, but doesn't feel as punitive and you're not kicking people out, that type of thing.
Sure. And then, my final thing is just on the grants, and then I have a bunch of other things that are gonna be asked. I feel like I'm repeating myself every year. The grants, when it comes, we've got grants on 2-year cycles or 3-year cycles, whatever it is, and, annual renewals, all these fun things. One of those grants, has gone specifically towards special ed, materials, I believe. And I think it was a 2-year grant or something. I'm gonna need help understanding, but my question really is, what is not reflected in here of grants that are starting to potentially dry up, whether that's grants of we're going to try to renew and maybe we won't get it again, or grants that are no longer exist after this most recent cycle?
Well, we've absorbed quite a few grants, and we, as you know, I wrote a grant for a social worker counselor. We got that in 3 years, and then it was absorbed. The narrative at the beginning, the introduction, has the transition of the grants that we've, that have been discontinued.
Right.
That's really it. It's the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The impact of that grant reduction was 2.75 FTE paras and a 0.85 FTE teacher. Moving to the operating budget, and then the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, ending. That was the 0.7 FTE social worker moved to operating budget. That's the end of the grant that I wrote, that we ran, had for a couple of years. So those are the two major grants that, have, sunsetted. And that's why we have, about 205, I think, 230, 1,000 impacts because of those. But, in the future, I can't really project what will happen with the federal grants. I have no idea. I think the state grants will stay fairly stable. But the federal grants, it's just a really weird time. So I don't know. I would assume that they're not, so far, they haven't really pulled back on them except for the 205,000 that I've already talked about. So hopefully that's, going to stay that way. But that's the biggest impact on that would be those grants on page 8 from, in the 200,000 zone.
I guess I was more so hoping to hear.
Well, actually, 238,000 to be exact.
I was just, I wishful thinking. I was hoping to hear, yes, and we found this grant, and it's going to cover this for the next, in 2 years, and it's this 6-figure amount and all those things. So I did not get that. That's okay. Any other questions? I guess I'll go in round 2, or I'll submit to the FAQ. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna jump in if that's okay for my first round. So yeah, like Jaden, very took a lot of notes on the things that, we heard from all the administrators, a lot of same things across the schools. I will say that, I do have a question based on something Jaden just said though for TMS. You mentioned the librarian. Do we not have a full-time librarian at the middle school any longer?
So, I don't know if, how many of you are around for that discussion that NEAS&C, for the high school evaluation, one of their priority areas that they listed was that we provide a 063 librarian certified staff member support at the high school. So we have a library manager, and going back a few years, the library manager was part of another reduction at one point where the manager ended up being at the high school. That manager does not do the job of a teacher. It's really to manage the library the way you might have a public library managed. That person is not a certified teacher. So NEA's requested solution more or less was that, we provide not necessarily a new staff member there, but that we have some time where there's crossover certified library media specialists in that school. So our library media specialist now is more of a 612 library media specialist. Now, if you think about it, the district has leveled out in enrollment. You do not have any additional adjustments to make personnel wise with respect to enrollment. But when I first came here, a million years ago in 2006, the district had 3,000 kids. Now it has 200. And so there's, options here for, personnel to avoid more reductions of certified staff. And, in that case, we're splitting a position. So 0.2 FTE of the 612 library media position is at Tolland High School now. And that person interacts with the library media specialist and interacts with staff and students, provides some actually Canva classes and things like that, one-on-one tutoring classes in Canva with kids and that type of thing. So that certified library media specialist works in the high school and in the middle school. It's splitting that position. And we still have a library manager to manage the collection and everything. And then about 0.2 FTE, a couple hours a day, the person that is our sort of 612 comes down or goes up, however you want to look at it, to the high school. So they spend some time at the high school every day. And that's in response to NEASC's, priority area request.
Yeah, I do remember that. So just to clarify, so the library media specialist at the middle school spends most of the day at the middle school, but then does some of the day at the high school.
About 0.2.
The high school also has their library manager. Does the TMS library have anyone additional except the media specialist?
TIS and BGP are the same, 1-on-1.
Okay. And then I will say, last year I talked a lot about, my concerns about the lack of mental health, professionals in our schools. I do believe that has a strong impact on our safety and security, which is research proven as well, that it, is actually more important to have the mental health supports, to avoid things like school shootings rather than actually having someone armed in the school. But so one of the things that's very concerning to me is that we still do not have a social worker at the middle school. To my understanding, we are one of, I think, a few, if not only in the state, that middle school that does not have a social worker at the middle school. They are also constantly discussing a lot of problems. I mean, I think we remember middle school, and those of us who have kids in middle school, those are some very difficult development years. And I think last year, and so this data could be a little old, but I said that for social workers, I believe it's recommended that is it 1 to 240? So one for every 240 kids. Last year at the middle school, we had 469. So let's just, assume that number's around the same. So we should really have at least two social workers there, and we have 0. Now I know it's not that we're necessarily in a position to add, anything, as we're always kind of in that place. But I do wonder, you know, both that and in speaking with the middle school and some of the other schools, and we talked about it a lot last year, that PPT facilitator role, which is something that I understand was also a requested position that was not added into the budget. I feel really strongly that a PPT facilitator would be an extreme benefit to the school. Not only would it obviously free up some staff time, but to have somebody who has, you know, experienced 504s and IEP meetings for special education with their child, to have someone follow that process would be extremely helpful. You know, already as you go into different schools, you know, you're dealing with a whole new team of people. And these relationships are really based on trust, they're based on experience, they're based on knowledge. So I just think it benefits everyone, it benefits our staff, it allows our administrators to do more of the things that administrators need to do. So in discussing those two things, I'm just wondering, you know, and it's something that, you know, we can think about. But I want to put it out there to you guys, like and Dr. Willett, I kind of wonder if one of these things maybe would be if we were considering doing, I believe that of the new positions, I understand why the ABIS para is seen as extremely necessary in Birch Grove. And at $36,000, it makes a lot of sense to me for the issues that they're having, and that it's also taking interventionists away from our other students who need them. And then, of course, we think about the trickle down effect of that. And then, you know, more special education services means more money, more resources. So I think that is cost effective. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe the MTSS coordinator could maybe be swapped out with a social worker for the middle school or the facilitator. So just kind of wondering thoughts and opinions on that. I don't know if you have any direct opinions on that immediately, Dr. Willett.
You know, I can see the rationale for that. And if the board wants that, that's my job to make sure I, you know, do what you feel is in the best interest of the kids. I would say that there would probably be a lot of support for a social worker. I think that the reason MTSS is in there is if you looked at the NEASC report, as we did in curriculum and things like that, that's just one school, but there is a very clear message to our district to up our MTSS resources. So that's why that's there, because it's in response to, say, you know, various indicators that say we should be doing that. And if you can identify tier 1, 2, and 3 kids in what's called that tiered system to support, you will have fewer special education designations because you're handling it through the MTSS process, which ultimately saves in logistics and even cost. So the MTSS one, you know, has a cost avoidance potential factor. The social worker is certainly, you know, I can understand, you know, certainly middle school is transitional age, a lot of hardships, the rates of everything go up at that grade, everything. So I can understand it. If that's what the board wanted to do, I would like that change.
And I think there's always some overlap in these things, like, you know, when you think of multi-tiered systems and you think about the children who benefit from those systems, obviously, especially in the higher tiers, having a social worker would still benefit those children. I mean, if they would benefit all children, but those children, they tend to need additional support as well. So it still does help us in, I understand that it doesn't necessarily check that box that NEASC is looking for, but it certainly applies to helping students that are needing tiers of support.
It'll, yeah.
And families that their children are needing tiers of support.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was just something I wanted to throw out to think about. I think one of the biggest things for me was also my discussion with Adam Scheer, our IT director. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood this, because I don't know that I understood completely the way it was broken down. But so basically, we need to upgrade to Windows 11. There's 5, and please correct me if I get any of this wrong, talk about it. There's 5 years to do that. We are currently in year 1. Every year, it goes up an additional $1 per device that we have if we don't change over to Windows 11. Windows 11 cannot be installed on the desktops that are already on the desks of our teachers and other staff members. So this putting in a great portion of that IT increase is buying the monitors that would be for teachers and staff members. So they would be available for this, they would use their laptop, they could plug in, they could have both screens. And these monitors have a 15 to 20-year lifespan. So it certainly makes sense, certainly something, it's an investment for quite some time. Which much longer than our laptops last. So I, like Mackenzie, very much think that our tech should be included in our capital budget. Now, I recognize that we are outside the window, like Dr. Willett said, about putting it into our capital budget. I asked Adam if we've asked that. He said we've asked for it to be in the capital budget for about 8 to 10 years, but it's just something that doesn't get very high on the list. So of course, when we need these things and we've kicked this can down the road a couple times as we do, because we have to. We have to put it in our operating budget because we need it to get done, right? So last year we did have an additional joint meeting with the town council where we went in with some specific requests, which is not something we typically do in our joint meeting. The joint meeting is really a lot the opposite. It's the council's chance to ask our questions. But given that we were, I don't know, on a second failed referendum or whatever it was, the time we were taking a massive hit last year, we went to the town council and we asked for a couple of things. One of the things that we asked for is to do this trade and to put some technology onto the capital budget because it is something that is allowed in the capital budget. And we swapped it out for the auditorium seating that they were going to do during this budget cycle, and we're going to pay for that out of our ERF. Now, I have to say that, to just say this bluntly, I find that I understand why we did it. We had to do it. We offered them something, and it's great that they agreed. But it's also a little bit unfair, especially given that I think last year the town council estimated that maybe it was about $2 million that they were going to take from their general fund, which I think is up to $15 million now, to put towards budgets, and then found that they underestimated their revenue again, and it put that money, they never even had to use that $2 million from their general fund into budget. So my point in saying that is that there's clearly funds available in taxpayer money that's already being paid that could be disseminated to their departments. This is a way for us to specifically ask for something. This isn't us just simply saying, listen, I think that you need to give us more money. You're clearly under budgeting yourself. This is us saying, and this is what this department would use it for. So one of the things I'm going to ask, and probably now that we've scheduled a meeting for next week, given that we all know, I think, what's going on in the town council right now. But I would like to see if the board would, maybe approve myself reaching out to the chair and asking if we could have an earlier joint meeting before we had an adopted budget. So that given the hard decisions we're going to make this year, we could see if they can't obviously do anything until they're within their budget process. But we could explain some of the things that maybe we'd like to ask for, so that when we make our budget, we may have some idea that, we have some room in there because they may cover some of this, right? So I would like to ask them to cover this in the capital budget, or to cover this out of the general fund and put it in the capital budget going forward. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. And I think we can maybe talk about that later when we get to scenarios, or if you have any opinions when you talk, and then we could talk about it. Because I don't think right now is the time to schedule a meeting with the town council, unfortunately, very unfortunately.
Yeah. Can I talk about what you're talking about? Ask you a question on what specifically you're asking to ask them?
I want to ask them to move this.
The tech.
But what item though?
Are you talking, if you're talking about
Upgrade from Windows 11.
the Windows 11 monitors,
Anything that's hardware, that is technology hardware, can be put into a capital budget. So any amount of this increase that we have, which is $300,000 and whatnot, I want to ask them anything that is not a software, but it's an equipment request, is $321,200. I want to ask them to cover either in the capital budget or out of the general fund, with an understanding that it's not going to be a recurring ask from the general fund, but a recurring ask from the capital budget. I think we need to start pushing to have our technology added to the capital budget, because I think that they have the ability to do so.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just for clarity.
Can I just,
Yeah, sure.
one more question? Are you limiting the ask to the technology line or, other lines that may be able to be capitalized?
That was my particular, ask, but I mean, you're welcome to ask as something as well. I mean, I do think we're not going to get millions. But,
No, good.
right,
But
but
but maybe we could pose the question to Chairman Moran, you know, just generally, like, there are expenses in our operating budget that are technically capital and should be depreciated over time.
Mhm.
Would the town have, like, maybe not put numbers around it right now, or?
yeah, perhaps we could ask Dr. Willett if there were just some things he could let us know that were in this budget that could be allowed in the capital budget, and we could certainly let them know that there are those things, and then decide how much we want to ask for, or how much they would be willing to give us.
This is one of those things where I want to be careful not to over-explain. Because you can get lost, but it has some nuance here. So let me start by saying, I think you've done an amazing job of approaching the counseling and coming up with synergies, like the SRO thing. I mean, it played out in a way where that cost was offset, you know, that was amazing. That was great. Was our chair did that, it was the town council chair, and the town cooperated, everything's been great. What's tricky about capital is the process, and so I'm not saying that that could not happen. The way you're approaching it is as a special exception. You know, kind of like we cut that deal last year where we said, hey, you give us that 188 for our ed tech initiative, we'll use our ERF for the auditorium seats. So there was a quid pro quo there. Here you're going for a straight ask. And so it's really it's more, instead of more of a capital thing, it's kind of asking the council to offset an impact in a rough year. If you look at the 2026 to 2031 BOE capital spreadsheet, and it's on the board dashboard, it's also on the capital site that all the public can see. You'll notice, and I know this is funny and I need to think of a different term, but the woes. There, when opportunity arises, the board has asked in the past for the council to take things like the TMS computer labs and the server upgrades and these, computer upgrades. And the town has typically said, not a capital expense. We don't accept that as a capital expense. But when if and when the opportunity arises, that money becomes available, maybe. So you're in the whoa area because you're kind of coming up and saying, hey, there's an opportunity. You've got an unassigned fund balance. You could help us out. So you're in that, maybe that is an opportunity that will arise in a conversation between chairs. And so that's a possibility. But just to be clear about the capital process, that ended for us in October. So we can't really, that process is done. They're making their own bond plans, that type of thing. You're kind of coming at it from hey, is there an opportunity here? And so, but I think the town does not typically define monitors as a capital expense in its vernacular. It's like a 10-year thing that, a boiler, yes, but a monitor, no. And that's just the history of it. Because they're typically making woes out of things like these lab upgrades that basically I should just take off here because they just never really made it on. So I think I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm saying you're looking for ways to offset budget impacts, and that's creative and that's been done before. More power to you, and I'll support you any way I can. But I do want to break it apart so we don't conflate the two. That capital thing is done, and the town could say to us, that was October, guys, we're done with that. Do you want to talk about some special exceptions, which would be that kind of this approach?
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. I think I am in a place where I believe the town should stop putting so much into the woes, because I believe that they have the funds to do more. So I'd like to have that specific conversation with them. JP, did you have something specifically about that? Because I have more I'd like to get to.
Yeah, and this is, it's something we could, if someone, my question is, if somebody could educate me on whether, how much a difference it makes to a town, whether something is being depreciated, right? Obviously, as an individual or a business, it's, it makes a big difference from the tax treatment, tax standpoint. For us, is it just like optional that it could be an additional source of money? Or is there some additional implication of the depreciation that I'm not aware of for town budgeting purposes? I don't know if you know, or.
I'm not understanding the question. I don't know what the question.
Their tax implication. Is that what you're,
Yeah, like for an individual or a business, there's a huge tax implication.
right, for depreciating a vehicle or?
But for a town, like, it's not like we have to pay taxes to.
So you're talking about depreciating this hardware depreciating?
Right, like, as an individual, if you weren't depreciating something that you should be, your accountant's gonna tell you that's bad, like it's essentially a revenue opportunity to properly depreciate something, right? Is there some parallel for a town budget to that there's a what's in it for me for the town?
I think it's more of
For
a
that,
color of
or-
money discussion at the municipal level, right? Like,
Yeah,
and I follow what you're saying, right?
maybe it's something I could bounce off the town managers to educate.
Yeah, but there's not a specific tax or revenue
Right.
implication,
Okay,
but it is about how the town funds different asks, right? So there's an impact to something that is technically capital and could be depreciated over time being in our operating budget, even though it's not a recurring expense, which is what should be in operating budgets, versus the color of money they use to fund CapEx.
gotcha. So it's an optional color, color of money, is it? Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it depends whether they're going out to go bond something, where they're gonna pay interest and ask the taxpayer to bond. Then they'll probably depreciate it, they'll have a smaller payment, say for $10 million, they'll pay over 10 years, that
I
10
can
million.
see that.
Versus taking it out from the piggy bank where they got 14 million or 12 million or whatever it is. As of yesterday, in the account, just writing a check to the computer people to put the computers.
Like we're asking them to bond our
Yeah.
windows a little bit.
But maybe they have other
Yeah.
technology that they're bonding, they might bundle it up.
That's true.
If they have server upgrades to the town, or your microphone's been sitting here for 2 years, we haven't used one.
We certainly have depreciated.
We used to use those.
One year,
Yeah, point being,
zero.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I was just trying to think of whether there's something we could capture that would help sell it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Work on that, JP.
Okay, boss.
We're gonna need you to sell that. All right, thank you. So then. The
Yeah.
other thing that I wanted to talk about was, I did just want to point out with clubs, because like I'm having the same thoughts because we were able to make it work this year. I think my biggest hang up with club is the feedback that we've gotten that it has limited our students from doing multiple clubs, and it has also limited them from doing sports, right? Because we increased the sports rate. So kids who maybe did 3 clubs and 2 sports are now having to make choices that they didn't have to make before. And some students are having to choose one thing because it's all their family can afford. So, that piece of it weighs on me when making that decision. So I just wanted to express that. Oh, I also wanted to connect that, given that we are also down a percentage of a nurse at the middle school, and we know what that overall impact was with the nurse reductions we did. I feel like that's another reason why a social worker would be needed there. As we all know, many students go to the nurse for mental health and emotional health issues, not just physical issues, and sometimes those things do manifest in physical issues. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was security. So when we had the initial discussions with the town about taking over our security, it wasn't necessarily for what we did, right? Which is right now we have one of the resident troopers acting as an SRO. to a degree, because they are still an administrative trooper. Which was great, which was supposed to be a short-term option, before, as we figured out how the town could fund an SRO that we would hire. And as you know, we've been going through that process. Dr. Willett's been working very hard on that process and getting the correct paperwork and whatnot. In those discussions, I felt like both sides of the aisle, which those people aren't necessarily here anymore, but were very, very much engaged in having a discussion about the town covering security. It's done in many other towns and cities. The buildings, our school buildings, our town buildings, our students and our staff, our community members. There wasn't a huge pushback on them covering security. So the other reason I would like to have a meeting with the town council is I would like them to fund however it is that they need to do that. They can do that, whether that be by policy, whether it be separate things, the SRO, having 2 SROs might be the agreement that we have with the town. But I also think that they can cover the 2 SATSA officers for that. We can request for that. It is a lower monetary request than asking for a trooper to be at each school. It's a lower monetary request than asking for an SRO to be at each school. And I really, really like the inclusion of this in Dr. Willett's budget to know that we would have security to some extent at ours. This is one of those things that we will 100% look at ourselves if we don't work on, if something was to occur. So I would like to ask the town to cover our full security expense, and that would include the increase of the 2 SATSA officers, the increase of the full-time SRO, as well as the SATSA officer that we already have and that is already in the budget. But I think that we can ask them to cover that entirely. So I would like to have a meeting with them to discuss covering at least a portion of the technology, maybe more. As they can classify it as the capital expense, they cannot, but they can know that going forward, that given the revenue that they are bringing into the town, I believe that that's something that should start to be considered for the Board of Ed. In businesses, technology is part of the capital budget, as well as some of the things that Mackenzie mentioned as well, and the security. So that the security is going to be a huge piece. And then I think that
Is it just the stats officers?
I would like to ask the town to consider covering our full security costs. So that would be
SRO and,
SRO and 3 SATS officers, yeah,
what in the budget we have,
Plus the existing.
plus the
plus the
existing.
existing?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm not just asking them for the increase, I'm asking them to take over our full security costs. That would be what I would like to do if the board agreed with that. Okay, that's all I have for my specific questions. Does anyone have a follow-up on that? Or no, you're ready for your second round? No, I'm gonna keep going. So I'm gonna keep going on my first round. So Dana, JP and Joelle, you haven't talked yet. Dana, did you want to go next?
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that you were.
No, it's okay.
So first of all, security was a huge topic last go round. I know that I had several conversations directly with, Counselor Noonan regarding it. I know that was a big charge. I definitely think, I would support having that meeting, Jen, specifically, and Mackenzie and I talked about it when we were talking about an FFC regarding IT as well, and capitalizing some additional items and doing that. So I know that's gonna be our charge of FFC going forward for the next capital budget. I definitely think we have an opportunity of, we have a duty to our town to bring this to the town council, because, like you said, in any business, that type of line item is typically capitalized. So, I would support that. If you need help, crafting a document the documents to bring, we'd be happy to, I'd be happy to work with the FFC team to craft that. But I think it's important, and even in talking with our IT department, Mr. Chair, the upgrade and the elimination of the desktops and going to that upgrade with the monitors is you know, you're saving money long term. Whether we take this to the capitalized, you know, to the county council or not, it's here to be saving money long term. Just simply with the licensing and all of that. So he talked about that. Then, let's see. So that's not about tech. Thank you for what you hit, Jen, because that's minimized what I'm gonna talk about. Also, when it comes to the nurse, TIS, obviously that needs to be a major focus. With that, I have the TMS social worker as one of the things that I want to talk about, because nobody says I want to go back to middle school, right? They say I want to go back to high school, or I want to go back to my kindergarten, my elementary school days, like that. I feel like we owe it to our students who are going through the biggest changes in their life, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, all of that, and not having that support in the system. If we're talking about security in our buildings, and I believe you mentioned it too, John, is giving them that support before the fact versus after the fact when we have security in our buildings, albeit they're all very important. But we need to get to ground level with that. So the social worker has been a conversation piece for several years. So I believe we need to make sure that that stays aboard. And then one of the other things that I had, and when I went to every single school, as well as our curriculum department, MTSS coordinator was paramount to the success across all 4 schools. Specifically, they'd be quote unquote boots on the ground, a teacher position with experience and can balance multiple students, multiple situations, and give that support in the classroom, boots on the ground, versus an administrative umbrella role, right? This person would be on the ground with those students and with that staff, helping develop the staff, helping with the students in the classroom. So we have a strong multi-tiered system in our schools, in the support system in the schools. One of the big things that I heard from the high school was that's where it kind of, I think they're only hitting, and Mackenzie, you were with me, 8 or 10 students?
8 students
Yes,
in each grade, so 16. But they only did it freshman, so.
Right. So we're not even there yet at the high school. So you have these students that are going K through 8th grade and oftentimes need these supports throughout all those years. And then they get into the high school and all of a sudden we're just not providing them this support the way that we should be providing it. So, you know, they just need more kids to be serviced, and expanding it into 10th grade and beyond. They do the intervention and A and B day. They're rotating based on student need. They kept talking about building the capacity for staff, having behavioral staffing, enrichment instruction. They are using the math Eagle block at THS to help some of the 6th through some of the students. But again, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. We need to continue to support the MTSS program. We need to continue to provide. It's a strong structure throughout our schools. And then some of the things that everybody was saying was in every school, in every department, keep me at status quo. I'm making it work. We're figuring it out. But I definitely feel that everybody has touched upon, who's spoken has touched upon key areas that we need to make sure that we support: safety, security, mental health, social emotional learning, multi-tiered support, counseling services, middle school counseling, all of that. So I definitely want to make sure that those are focuses for us as a group. I know that the TMS, the ERF is covering the middle school auditorium that's getting done this summer, which is exciting. I know that has been a hefty conversation with the town council and us as a whole. And then in talking, so that's where I feel like that. So again, I support you, Jen, with that IT, and that we'll get you what we need to do so we can get that done. As far as maintenance, and this is where I'm gonna get to my question with the electricity line. I was talking to Megan, talking to my lovely Pete Saba, who does so much for us, and he's very cost efficient and resourceful. He talked about Birch Grove being very efficient with power, but expensive to repair. So we have that school is very efficient with power. Then we have the middle school. That was what? 1983 was the addition, but the school's 1960 something, Dr. Willett?
TIS?
MS, TMS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
it's-
both
We have some old buildings.
many years old.
We have some old buildings, TMS and TIS. So I guess with that being said, again, Birch Grove is very efficient. We've built a strong school with efficiency when it comes to that with power. But is it TIS and TMS that are driving? And if I'm gonna go to the object page, 620 or whatever it is. The
TIS and TIS do have geothermal systems, which are fun, which is still.
Right, so I guess my question is why is the electricity line like?
Because we
I don't know,
offset that.
but, yeah.
Yeah, that, you'll get that in the FAQ, but we offset it. We artificially lowered that by putting money into that. We should offset our budget last time, so it makes it look like we spent less than we did.
So I asked the same
So
question.
you have a huge increase because we offset it with the money from USIP and the RM.
Right.
Okay, no, I do recall that. So that's
That made
another
it look
example.
artificially low, which makes it look like it's a massive.
And that's just typical of us, our pendulum swinging that.
Well, it's just that's how we offset budget impacts last year was by pulling from USIP and ERF. And now you'll see where you see like massive increase, it's really just last year it came from those two chunks and this year it's all from our chunk. You know, we don't have that.
Okay, so that's what's primarily driving that.
Mhm.
Okay, then, the other thing is I just want to make mention about the clubs, because you had brought up the clubs. And, the clubs and activities and even the sports and activities. I think it's paramount, however we figure out how to do it. And don't get me wrong, I am a parent of 2 student athletes, a parent of 2 students that are involved in multiple clubs. So I know the price tag wasn't optimum. However, I would rather pay the price tag versus not have the option at all for my students and other students. I think and I'll talk about this one young man that I talked about last year and the year before. He found the jazz band and he found the video department, and he was huge in building the set for the middle school play. He's also the one who does all the videos now for the middle school, for the welcoming, the 6th graders in, so on and so forth. This young man was struggling with his grades because of things happening. And because of those clubs and because of those activities, his grades are flourishing. So we need to remember when we're talking about our board goals, when we're talking about this and being, not only when we're fiscally responsible, we're fiscally responsible, not just to have a bottom line budget, but we're fiscally responsible to make sure that we're making a sustainable budget year over year to provide for our students, and making cost saving efforts isn't necessarily reducing, right? So making sure that we have these clubs available for our students in whatever capacity. Although I do appreciate what Jen is saying, because I did hear the same thing. It was very difficult for some families. And yes, unfortunately, they had to make hard decisions. And I don't want this to sound bad, but I'd rather have some out there than none at all in our budget. Is the best way that I can communicate that. That's all I have.
Do you think you want to go, or Joel?
I'll go ahead and go. And I won't be long, because pretty much everything that I'm gonna say is what all of you already said. And we've all said it in our own different ways, but we're pretty much all saying the same thing. All right, there's a few things, and like Dana just said, when I was at the workshop last week, I asked each and every one of the principals there, what keeps you up at night when it comes to this budget? All right, and they kind of looked at me like, okay, that's a pretty broad question, but a good one. And they said safety and security. You know, and I will tell you that some felt more comfortable than others. And, talking to, and I will say, Tom, Poland, he said, I feel that I have, some good, things in place for people checking doors and walking the hallways and stuff. But I can honestly say that others didn't feel as comfortable as he did. So that's definitely my top priority, so whatever we have to do to make sure, and I know you've already said it, Jen, so that's all I'm gonna say about that. Mental health, the nurses, cause to me, they're kind of, hand in hand is another thing that was their concern. And, whatever we have to do to get that there, and I know it was gone and put back in, and well, you did what you had to do in the beginning of the school year, and recent events. So, I'm glad to see that, but that's one of those that we cannot avoid and we cannot neglect. Kids are within the four walls of the schools. They can't learn, they can't make sure that our goals are being met if they're not safe and they're not making sound. So those are my top priorities, and pretty much all my questions that I have, they're already in here, and I don't want to go and rehash them because they're already in there and I put them in there, and I'll just wait for Dr. Willett to answer those questions. So that's it.
Yeah, I'll be quick too. I have a couple of questions that I will submit on the website. And I can handle the first answer being there. And a couple of things I've asked as we've gone along here. So I'm fine returning the rest of my time to the chair, as it were.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Motion to go past 10 o'clock.
So
Idling.
Yeah.
I like it.
And you didn't bring me chocolate.
So Bill motion,
No.
Kenzie seconded. Second.
But we were in my office. So there was-
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. Okay, so I'm gonna go to our second rounders then. So, Mackenzie, you had your hand up first on that.
I'm good.
That's good now. Okay, Elaine, you had your hand up for a second.
Oh,
Right.
okay, so
Right.
I'm actually going to basically say, I'm gonna submit those questions online
Okay.
for time interest too, and then, then that gives Dr. Willett time to kind of go into them in a little more detail also. So then, at this point, I know we're supposed to try to tell Dr. Willett what we want. And it sounds like we would all kind of, I'll be the first to say it, 10%, I'm not comfortable with going out there and saying, okay, community, we want 10% increase. And I know we talked about maybe not giving an exact number,
No, I'm okay with, just to clarify, I just meant.
Yeah, no,
Like,
No,
have to
she
be
didn't want.
right,
3%.
right, no,
Yeah. But that's your
Um,
opinion.
I'm going to throw out just a number that, you guys aren't gonna like, and I'm gonna tell you where it's gonna come from. Our seniors are getting a 2.8% increase this year. So how do we say, okay, you're only getting 2.8% more, just the Board of Ed budget, we need you at 10. So I'd like to see something come closer, to the national cost of living increase. Realizing unfortunately that our seniors probably still aren't getting covered appropriately that way. Again, that's, our hands are tied. That's nothing we can do about that. So I'm definitely not comfortable with 10%. I'd like something closer to what our seniors are getting. And I'd like to see if there is a way that Dr. Willett can do it without cutting any teachers. That's a big ask, I'm sure. So possibly with technology and security being pushed over to the town side, so they're not in our budget, to see if, what that does for our numbers. And possibly not getting rid of, I don't want to get rid of nurses. I think we can all agree we'd prefer not to get rid of any, mental health help for them. Yeah.
I do just want to make one quick point to that, not that I'm opposing anything you said, because I'm not, but just as a reminder, just because the Board of Ed asks for a 10% increase,
Right.
not that I'm saying we should, does not mean that the town council, when going into mill rate, that we're asking for that percent. So
Right.
we can ask for a percent increase that they can work on with things that they have and opportunities that they have before they necessarily pass that on to the taxpayer. So although I completely respect what you're saying, and I agree, just because we give a 3% doesn't mean that that's going to correlate to a 3%. Just because we give a 6% doesn't mean that's going to correlate to a 6%.
Right. We won't know that till
Till they have the
happens.
conversations, right?
Exactly, so, but closer,
Mhm.
so that, you know, again, I just think it would be easier for everybody to swallow a much closer number.
Is that 3% we're talking about?
I mean, 3% that would make me very happy personally, but I'm one person, one taxpayer, one, you know.
Mhm.
So,
1 second, you wanted.
Well, I've got questions. If you want to tag on to that.
I certainly appreciate, what you're saying, and I also agree that a 10% increase doesn't sit well with me. But it doesn't sit well with me for different reasons. And that's because we need 10%. Well, we need 7.5% to keep the lights on. Right? Everything that's contractually required is 7.5% of the increase in our budget. So almost 80% of what's being asked for as an increase is to just maintain what we currently have. And year after year, we had increases that did not keep the pace of inflation, and argue that the cost of living increases that our seniors are getting from the federal government do not keep pace with inflation. And certainly wouldn't want to, align with that policy, frankly. And I can appreciate that, especially in the last few years, there is a direct correlation made between the Board of Education budget and the increase on the taxes in our town. And I want to be very clear about what our charge is as the Board of Education, which is different than what the charge is for the town council. And our charge is to put forth a budget that is sustainable and supports our students and supports all stakeholders. And it is the town council's responsibility to balance the needs of the town and all the individual departments and the revenue coming into the town, of which taxpayer dollars for private property is one part of the revenue that can come into a town. And so I certainly don't envy them their job in doing that, right? They have a very difficult job. But our charge as Board of Education members is to be able to say that this is a viable and sustainable budget that supports all the needs of our students. And it's at 10% because it's been at 1.5% and 2% year over year over year. And I think that that's something that we need to seriously consider when we make cuts and target a number.
Okay, so Bill has some more questions, so I'm gonna bounce to that, and then, if anybody has any more questions, we can do that, and then we can we need to see if we can try to nail down some scenarios based on feedback we've already received and anything additional.
I don't want to beat a dead horse with enrollment, but I just want to talk about some data points, and if you can follow me, Dr. Willett, just let me know if my assumptions or numbers are off. I've got the pages out of the last 2 years budget booklets.
And the current year, sorry.
Current year is page 26, the enrollment report. Sure. So fiscal year 24-25, and I'm only looking at the top line of these enrollment numbers, which shows actual numbers that you provided us with. So out of the budget book, fiscal year 24-25, pre-K through 12th grade, we had 2,220 students. Fiscal year 25-26, on that same line, pre-K through 12th grade, we had 2,145. This year, we've got 2,121. That's a loss of 99 students in just that 3 years' time. Now, when I look at this year's numbers in students, and we look at K through 12, we've got an anomaly in our 11th and 12th graders where there's 176 and 180 students. And we knew that those last couple classes were pretty large. So if we just take our K through 10th grade years that we currently have right now, there's a couple blips like in 3rd grade where we have 183 students. There's also a couple low grades like K2 where we have 137 students. But if we just take K through 10, that comes out to an average of 153 students per class in those grades. If we extrapolate that over 13 grades, that 153 kids, that only comes to 1989 total enrollment. So I know the estimation here shows that our numbers are going up. But the trend over the last number of years actually shows our numbers going down. And I keep hearing about, well, the blips and we're on the way back up, but the numbers show that we're going down still. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I guess I'm wondering why you're grabbing pre-K to 10 instead of grabbing all the grades.
Well, I grabbed K because pre-K doesn't include all the kids that are going to be enrolled. So
those are kids in the system.
well, I could, but then that's going to bring down the average even lower.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if I scoop up all of them, I'm not sure, I'm probably just misunderstanding. It just
Sure.
sounds like you're saying take only through 10th grade or whatever, but what I've been repeatedly saying is not that you're not making some adjustment downward, but your adjustments downward, if you look at the enrollment reports that I provide, they have your actuals and they have the NESDEC predictions. And if you recall a few years ago, I can't remember when, we did question the 180 number that NESDEC provided. And that year I ran two different tables, one of, the non-NESDEC and one of the NESDEC. And that NESDEC prediction turned out to be true. So I do put a lot of faith in the NESDEC predictions because they've come up to be true. And a lot of times they come up true, but they shortchange us a little bit. So the NESDEC predictions have not said we were going to be going up yet. But if you look at the 5-year projection that NESDEC has, you do go up. And NESDEC had said we were going to be fluctuating towards that 2000 number. That's not new. In every single enrollment report I've given you, NESDEC has shown that we tripled downward. But what it did show was that there was a floor here. And that ultimately, when you look at the NESDEC stuff that I provided through 2035, you're really not changing that much. So it's not so much you're not losing some to the point of, I think the year that you bottom out on that is something like 27, 28, and then you slowly start to pop back up because those big grades in the high school go out and then you get, a little bit more sizable ones in the pre-K K1, like you're getting the 160s, the 155, the 161. Those numbers, the 160, the 155, the 161 are higher than the 137, the 145, the 137 you have now. So you're right, the big classes are popping out, but the ones coming in aren't as low as the ones have been. So you're really kind of you're now at that same spot, probably through 2035, where your net change between now and 2035 is something like, I don't know, that 6 kids, and there's a percentage for that. So it's never been stated that you're not, NESDEC has been published each year, and these data has been published each year that there's this slight thing, but you're not really going that much lower than your floor of about 2073, and then you're climbing. And you can see that climbing already happening because you are getting more of those pre-K kids. NESDEC hasn't been wrong, even though we thought it was, but it hasn't. I think those numbers, if you look at my enrollment report from the NESDEC predictions, I think those are real. In fact, I'll bet you a cup of coffee they're real because I've doubted it before and it came out.
We're going to watch for that one cup of coffee.
But I think those are reasonable. Right.
We don't have Starbucks, so it's got to be Dunkin'.
Because, you get to call the plays.
Okay.
But I do think that 151, that 160, I do think those are accurate based on past experience with NESDEC. And they, they do it on birth rates, doing all that. And so that's really what you're looking at is those are replacing your 137s, your 145s, all of that. So it's not so much that you're not seeing some fluctuation downward. I think that's been illustrated. It's just that if you're talking about 5 years, you can't go cutting 20 teachers based on a fluctuation that's going to go between 21-21 and 21-29 over the next 5 years. It wouldn't make any sense, right? And you have made your adjustments. if you go to that data, that data point, I think it's between when I started in 2006 and now, the district has made an adjustment of what is that? I want to get that I'm going to say it correctly here. It's on that data point page.
Yeah.
Last, I just dumped it so I could open the enrollment, but somewhere in this, it's 39 to 42 people. The reduction has been 39 to 42 teachers over that span of time.
Right.
That ratio is like 1 to 22, which is about right. 1 to 22 classes.
Right.
So the point really in the enrollment conversation is not so much that you're not seeing that kind of fluctuation, it's that you really don't need to make massive staff adjustments because you're not changing that much in the next 5 and 10 years. You're staying about where you are, even though our data does show 2121 to 2086 to 2073, back up to 2101, back up to 2129.
Okay,
The data point you were looking for is that from 06 to 26, we've reduced
Right.
47 teachers.
Yeah, so 47. And it's just that your adjustment has been made from an FTE point of view. It's just that, it doesn't make sense to make any more massive staff
no,
adjustments.
and I said a few meetings ago that I'm not in favor of reducing teachers. I just wanted to, make that point based on, the last 3 years of data. And,
Yeah, I mean, each of those-
averages.
All those enrollment reports, my reports have said that.
Right,
You are going to, but my point every single time has been, if you're looking at the 5 and 10 years scope, you're really not. I mean, what's funny about these kind of conversations? Our enrollment is going down. Yeah, if you look at that one tree. But if you look at the forest, you're actually not. You're staying about the same and
yeah,
going up. But if you were to look at that one tree, you can say going down. But you're thinking, you're not planning necessarily for just that tree. You're thinking about the next 5 years.
and they get these estimations based on birth rates.
Yeah,
You
they
said.
do birth rates and all kinds of,
Because
consider.
in 3 years, we've dropped out 99 students. And that's a significant amount in 3
Well,
years.
because you have the
We had
big
huge classes
going
that
out,
way,
and
right,
you have more modest ones coming in, but
Right.
the ones coming in are bigger than the ones that have been coming in.
right,
So it's really just,
yeah.
leveling. You are in that leveling stage here.
Well, I didn't want to get negative on that. I hope it wasn't taken that way. I
No,
just wanted
no,
to
not at all.
notice some things. I wrote down here in my notes, regionalization. Is there a possibility to regionalize certain services with schools as opposed to entire districts?
If you name a service, I can.
Special ed, well, I mean, let's just.
Well, there's,
You ask them questions.
not until the state comes up with a standard and takes a little bit more control of the widely insane cost right now of those outplacements. There's no standardization or regulation. They're all over the place and, the seats, you go where there's seats. And it's not something we control directly. People can bring us arbitration and arbitrators decide. So there's just not a lot of collectivization of that. So probably not right now because there's no one to turn to do it. The market, is what they make it. We don't have any control over what's charged.
Is there anything,
I mean, LEAP kind of does that. But
sure,
We did ask that question to Dr. Hess and Wendy Cody at the other night at the workshop. And specifically like LEAP, I said the same, like, could we have other students come into our LEAP program? And they said that we have done a little bit of that before, but they said that the reality is that most districts have their own version
Now,
of that
yeah.
program now.
we were ahead of the curve for that.
Yeah.
We created that, to be clear, LEAP is a cost avoidance program, not a revenue program. So what that does is, if you have, let's just take a round number, which is about accurate, just round numbers, 30 students in LEAP. If even, 10% of those, or, let's take a bigger, if even 10 kids are avoiding outplacement, if we're avoiding outplacement on even 10 of those 30, you're saving almost $1 million. And so it's a cost avoidance program where we're avoiding the cost of $1 million of outplacement by having it. But We were an early adopter, honestly, we started that before a lot of places did, but they are all catching up with that and creating their own. So most districts have something like Leap now, and, we don't necessarily need theirs and they don't need ours. We did try to have a school merge with us. If you recall, some of the board members who are around, we tried very hard. What happens in those scenarios is you can't control the narratives. And some people have some narratives, and so it didn't work out. Because those narratives, they have to all be in a certain consistent manner. But we got close. We were very, very close. So we can still continue to do that. And that is something I would do. Any opportunity to have a school district join or partner with us and having kids tuition into our school system, I would do that. Sure. And I'll keep pursuing those. And we got very close to that in the last year, but it just.
That was Union, right?
Yeah. But it felt true because.
It's the biggest town in town.
What's that?
It's the smallest town in town.
Oh,
Yeah, and the thing about that,
Connecticut, I should say.
Yeah.
when we do that again, everybody's narrative has to be with it.
Yeah.
Because that can affect that.
all right, and my last question is there opportunities for us to share employees with the town? And why would we, or why would we not want to share a CFO or HR person with town?
It's a good question. We have explored that at least 3 or 4 times over my time here. So if you put that in the question.
I do.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. I'll pull all the information from the last few years. The shortest answer to that is, and this is a very short, very truncated answer. I don't think you're going to find anyone on our end or their end that has not enough to do. We're completely overwhelmed with what we have. So combining, meaning reducing the number but increasing the load, is probably not optimal and will result in significant issues. And it has in places where it's occurred. There are many examples of that happening and them going back to somebody else and hiring at that point. So I'll give you a good narrative on the history here, and it's come up at least 3 times, and we've given the same narrative. The shortest answer is we're all overwhelmed now. So reducing the number and combining doesn't seem like that's going to work. Plus, we have very different systems, and we are bigger by far.
Well, and I'm not saying let's use them.
Right. I mean,
We're bigger.
we're
They use us.
400. Yeah. I mean, we're 400 employees,
Sure.
5 facilities, and we are much bigger.
Sure.
So anyway, I'll answer that in more detail
Okay.
there, but that's the shortest.
And again, I wasn't saying that we get rid of ours. It's a cost sharing, it makes sense. We've got the larger, I think it's easier. Well, yeah, I'll wait for your narrative on it, but,
Also, ask at a joint meeting.
sure.
Yes. That should be interesting.
You're all set, right?
I'm good, yep.
I'm gonna just jump in. I'm not gonna, I was gonna ask a question based on this, but I think I'll just make a statement. I clearly, if you know me or have watched me and the Jen Galashan channel for the last 4 years, I am not for any staff reductions. Let's make that clear. I don't care if they're teacher, admin, para, you name it. I think we need these people. I think our numbers show we need these people. Now, does that mean that I haven't had to vote to do things I don't want to do? Yes, of course I have had to do that. But in saying that, I just wanted to say both Elaine and Bill, you said that you did not want teacher reductions. I just want to throw this out there. Where I am okay with entertaining a teacher reduction or a staff reduction period. I say okay loosely because there's cons to this too. Is if we're not taking a job away from a person. So for instance, if you want to create scenarios that say don't have any teacher reductions, I would just suggest that we talk about actual people, because if we say we have a retirement and we can, because of class size differentials, we may be able to not have an additional teacher of that grade. Again, would I rather lower class sizes? 100%. But would I make that decision based on then taking a job away from someone else? I would. So I just mean like, just be careful, if we're gonna like be very specific about what scenarios, we might want to give some leeway for things like that, where we'd explore things and we'd look at things if they're more about positions being lost than actual people being lost. Because of things like retirements and people leaving and getting jobs elsewhere.
I think what I heard there is you're potentially more amenable to, positions being, lost, for want of a better term, through attrition rather than termination.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. And by the way, lots of cons with that. I'm not for, and when we remove positions, a lot of times we don't get them back. Just because a class size is going to be, 22 doesn't mean that next year it's not gonna jump up. My son is in a grade where all through his elementary school, there was an additional teacher for the grade above, and then that got swapped out for his grade because there was actually a full class more. But I'm just saying that when we make, statements like that, I would like to see that data first, because if there is a way to, yes, maybe make something a little bit uncomfortable, but a person doesn't lose their job, I would rather do that over someone losing their job. You had.
You already answered my question.
Right.
Are there any planned retirements inside this budget currently?
We already incorporated some of them. We offer incentive of thousands, tell us early and then we take it out. So some of them are already out. There may be other stuff. What I think that Madam Chair is referring to is, for some reason between now and Board of Ed adopted, budget, somebody, decides to go, maybe go to another district, there might be a differential. If we hire someone at a lower rate than they left, we would work that out of the budget. Or if there's a reduction of a position, but not a person. So if you had, I don't want to throw out an example that then scare somebody, but, let's say you had a ice cream distribution person and you have 5 of the ice cream distribution persons and you decide you can run it with 4 of them and one of them retires, then you are going to run with 4. You're not going to rehire the 5th. And therefore you can take that out of the budget. So it's a position reduction, but not a person reduction. Nobody loses their livelihood.
Oh, no, I completely understand.
So that would be the kind of thing we could do if you're, when you say don't reduce teachers, I will assume you're not saying positions, you're saying people that do not remove the livelihoods of the people that are in the district.
Yeah, I would vote with that, or
Right.
vote when I will deal with that as well. I don't want to see anybody lose their job.
So now I'm gonna ask the question, that I wasn't gonna ask anyway. On the reduction sheet, there's some staff reductions. Are those currently people at this time? Lines 7, 8, and 9, and I'm being vague on purpose.
Yeah, the 7 is people. 8 may or may not, based on some certain things that might happen in the next 2 weeks, there might be positions, not people.
Okay.
But that remains. Question. So 9 is people, 7 is people, 8 we'll see.
Okay. Okay.
But I can't guarantee it wouldn't be. People if certain things don't happen and they haven't happened.
Okay. Any other questions at this time, or we can start maybe figuring out some scenarios?
Take a look.
So I appreciate what everybody's brought to the table and had the conversation, and yes, I agree with scenarios for Dr. Wood to put forth. I want to just reiterate what Mackenzie said and what our charge is, and granted, albeit I don't feel comfortable putting in a 9.9% increase to anybody. Again, I don't want to say numbers. But again, as Mackenzie said, our charge is to support a strong budget, to support our students, staff, and schools. Now, it's not something that we're gonna solve today as board. Because I definitely think we could talk about a whole other thing. We could talk about our planning and zoning and or all that other fun stuff. They can bring new revenue to town to help offset our folks that are having different income problems, right?
Sure.
That's the 5, 10, 15, 20-year options, right? So, but our charge as the Board of Education is to be responsible to our student staff and facilities. What I will say is we are on this situation similar to the electrical situation where we put a Band-Aid on something, we swung the pendulum this way, so now we're swinging the pendulum back. So albeit a 10% looks like this huge extravagant increase, and the rhetoric is going to be that it's huge and extravagant. But when in my, and I'm struggling to find the dang page on this thing, I had it and I was looking through it. But the history of our budget increases is like 1.57, here we go. 1.52 for the 10-year average. Now, since I was on the board, when I joined the board, they came off a 0% increase. Actually, they came off not getting a budget approved at all. And then we did 0.78, 0.84, and then 0.10. Like and unfortunately, because of the decisions made in the past, this is where we are struggling, is my point. So I think if we make smart, steady decisions year over year budgeting, we can kind of try to creep our way up without being off-putting and have a bad taste in the mouth. But I definitely think we need to be acutely aware of what our charge is. That's the whole.
I think we're thinking today, so next week we would have another discussion to maybe go from our different points of view and meet somewhere in middle, right? So next week gives us that opportunity ahead of the 12th or whatever the 11th or whatever the date is, right? So, because to be honest with you, I agree with both Mackenzie and Dan. I agree with what you're saying in terms of, I mean, when I joined this board, when I got elected, I took it as, all right, let's support the school system and be honest about what we are lacking and what we need and not just, based it on our subjective opinion, but objective fact, right? And data that's supported by. There's also the scenario where no staff are affected and maybe there's some programming that gets affected and whatnot. But then there's the discussions about how the town council can get into this as well. So where I am right now is, and I'm sorry if people have more questions, I'm just throwing this out there. I think where I'm right now is I wouldn't mind seeing both scenarios of, okay, well, I am firmly confident that this is still not enough to nourish the school district. That's just my personal and professional opinion, to be honest with you. Then there's the side of it of let's use common sense here and think about referendum and the whole process, which I have yet to base any of my decisions on in the last 4 years. And I can't believe I'm at that point this time, this early. So I wouldn't mind those two scenarios of, this is what should be proposed to the town council to allow them to, because they don't attend our meetings, they don't go to the budget workshop, they don't go to anything to put the effort into understanding what goes into this budget. So where I'm at is this 10% or 9.9, this shows them sort of what they're not seeing, right? This shows them what is needed to its fullest extent and what's being added. The other proposal is the, I guess, middle ground or meeting point or the polar opposite end, and where we can, sort of go from there. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I sort of stayed quiet for a while, but just listening to everybody, I think that it makes sense for me to look at it, I guess, in both ways and give it a week and try to figure out where could we meet in the middle. But my big thing is, again, I think it's important for the council to see what the schools need. And I'm not saying what the town and the board, no. It's important for the council to see what the schools need. And that's very specific language I'm using. So no matter what we agree on tonight, I would hope that we can still at least have this proposal still available for us next week to think about, consider future conversations with the council and how we'd like to communicate with them. So there you go.
Thank you, George. Had yours?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, question, that might inform some scenario planning.
Yeah.
Do you have a legal responsibility to pay for people who are outplaced, not for special education?
Which expulsions, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to talk about what you were thinking about, but expulsion would be an example.
Yeah, no, not that. Like I want to go to EO Smith because they have a VOAC program.
Yes. There's an
Legal
amount that we do
obligation.
pay for transport or for certain things that go to certain places and we have, it is something we have to honor.
Same right.
Right.
For that. Look at these cats.
There's magnets, some of the, if you look at that, inter-district, no, there was a question on that too, getting there, but, there's a lot of questions, within 24 hours, which,
I don't know why.
no problem. I will getting there, and I have a lot of answers and moving through it, but, some schools we have to pay for, certain charters, some schools we don't.
Okay.
And that inter-district one shows you more or less the ones that we do and we don't, that are not special ed related.
Are we currently paying for any thing that we do not have a legal obligation to pay for?
Well, no. No, we're not saying, hey, can we give you money? No.
I
No,
think it's a
I
good
mean,
question.
Bill coffee perhaps.
yeah,
I understand your question.
yeah, no, we are not paying anything that we're not required.
So like we're paying for any student that's at EO Smith or Rockville, right?
Yeah, there's
And
certain
any
elements
sped student.
of that,
that
that
are-
all districts, you basically, VOAG, if a child wants to go to a VOAG school and it, isn't. That's,
I guess what are other, if Mackenzie, I hope I'm asking what you're asking.
Yeah.
So expelled or expulsion students, because we're legally obligated to send them, right? Sped students as well as the VOAG. Are there any other programs that maybe we're not talking about that we're paying for students to go elsewhere? Or is it just the VOAG? The
well,
special
that whole
education?
inter-district page.
Yeah, there's magnet schools, there's.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking for you. Like,
Yeah, there are
other
some magnets, no charters, yes, it's that inter-district page shows, it illustrates which one we're paying
But
for.
should ask them, there's a statute of loss.
Oh, yeah, definitely, it's not a choice, it's not optional or
We
discretionary.
can't cap it, we can't make it a lottery, yeah.
No,
They wanna go with that inter-district page tells you what we have to pay.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what we were attempting to do with pathways was create, options where somebody might not feel like.
People want to stay, right?
Yeah, like, hey, wow, look at that aeronautics program, but we have an engineering program, so I don't have to go over there for the aeronautics program.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna get the ball rolling on some scenario planning, okay? And we'll see.
And if I can throw out just the request.
I would love it. Bless you, Dave.
Yes.
None of us are getting up.
It's worse as the night's going.
If it's like everyone realized that. They started it,
Dana and I definitely saw the opposite side of the room. to
Yeah.
Cover
Not
everybody.
everybody. Great. Let's see who's actually here next week for this special meeting. Please,
Voted on.
can I just?
For you.
Oh, that's right, we did.
Seeds.
I want to point out one thing before you state it, just because it's important to me, Paul. So I think there were a few of you who were in line with, thinking about the security at piece and the capital piece, and at least asking for that. So just be aware that would be about 1%, right? Well,
Altogether.
full security and the tech.
Yeah, we're talking all three sets of,
Yeah,
and you're talking.
yeah, they're around, so that's around two.
You add, 220, about 300,000, or like roughly like 7.5.
Okay, so just, so just think about that when we're talking about percentages, that we would still have to build that into our ask, but our ask would be that 0.75 of it be covered by them. So I'm just saying that because that's such a huge chunk that I just wanted you to know what my thinking was there, and if that's something that you guys want to entertain. So I guess I'm thinking, yeah, why don't we try, well, I'm sorry, go ahead. You had suggestion, please.
Well,
Very much, please.
I mean, your process is, I'll work with whatever you do. A couple things to keep in mind. Your timeline between now and February 11th, whatever it is you get the council to agree to, has to be committed to by then, so you know what we're doing. It's for me to be able to create scenarios, the most, the optimal way you can give it to me is you could say something like, and then whatever the chair wants to do, whatever we're gonna do is fine, but here, percentage and priority. So here at this percent, we want you to aim for these 3 percentages and give us the impacts. But on these percentages, on this one, we want you to prioritize security and this and this. On this one, if you tell me what the priorities are, that's what I steer the funding to protect. And then other things might not be sustainable if we're protecting, X, Y, and Z. So I need to know percentage and priority. So let's just say you said, okay, well, I'll come back with a 10 and an 8 and a 6. And 10, 8, and 6, but we want you to prioritize safety and security. Then, none of that would be taken out. Other things would have to, be impacted.
So I guess what I would throw out, and then please build change, is I would like to see something that was probably around a 5. With the understanding that 0.75 of that is the full security request and full IT request. So that I was really asking the town council to consider a 4. And I'm gonna be quite honest here, we've never ever gotten what we've asked for. So I'm also building a little bit more upon that, given that we have never gotten what we've asked for. And then also another thing to keep in mind, yes, it is very important that we adopt a budget that we believe in. But at the same time, please understand that if once the council makes their decisions, we come back to this table and decide what's in or out. We're not committed to what they say, and then therefore, if they give us less, that gets rid of this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. We get to come back and decide and move things, or we may come up with something completely different, but we come back to this table. So, incorporate what you want and the things that you need into what you ask for or what you vote for.
Take a step back.
Yes, please.
All right, so my thought is having 3 options. And I'll explain them, but 3, 5, and 7 are the numbers that I've had in my head. 3, 5, and 7, our 5-year average is a little over 2. That's our 5-year average. I know our 10-year average is significantly lower. But 5-year average is a little over 2, so this is the bottom one is still higher than our 5-year average, higher than anything we've got. 3, 5, and 7. The priority in my mind is, I think with the last board, we all regret having to remove security. So, and I think this board seems to think that's a significant priority for us. So, my request in all of them would be that we prioritize security and we prioritize people over positions. I would be, like Jen said, okay, if we have to cut positions, I would rather see that done than reducing people. And the other thing, I guess, in my mind is the nurses. That's, in my mind, that's a priority for us as well. We made that mistake last year and, fortunately we were able to rectify it, but, if a kid had to wait longer time with a headache and was in pain because we didn't have a nurse available, we don't want that. My kid's sitting in pain. So, I don't want to see nurses reduce.
Can I just ask a question? When you say something, for instance, like a 3, if you're including like the security and the IT in that ask, which maybe you're not considering IT, you only mentioned security, are you really meaning then a 3 plus that 0.75, or are you meaning?
It all depends on if town council will fund that. I can't base what I'm talking about on a hope and a dream that town council is gonna fund it. So I'm going on the assumption that they're not going to. And that the 3 includes our security portion in there.
On the board side.
If that's what we have to do, yeah, on the board side. I said it last year in our capital discussion, I don't like the fact that we haven't done our man doors, and that's been pushed off on the capital project. I think that needs to be a priority. It should have been done already. The man trap, whatever it is.
The middle school?
Yeah.
if that's where it's at, yeah.
Well,
That's an
TIS was done this summer, which is good.
between TMS.
Right.
TMS.
They both should have been done,
Agreed.
so. You know, that's my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else want to throw in just any?
Just, yeah, I just put in a comment on top of the nurse situation that one of the, when I spoke with, at the middle school, that director, that Jaden, I guess she's the director of the nurses for the district or whatnot, she's doing so much paperwork that they are in need of another person. So I don't want us to say that we don't want to fill that position, because that position needs to be filled, because they inform me that there's times of the day where the place is literally closed.
Or the vice principal has to go over.
Yeah.
Principal, excuse me.
But they've told me they put up a sign saying we are closed. So kids at certain points, I don't know if they're closed for 12 minutes or for 45 minutes. Cause she's either on the phone with, you know, some state agency that might have to be dealing with something, or medical with a doctor. And she's dealing not with students there, but what does direct. So I just want to make sure that even though that position is currently right now, they're looking for somebody at the middle school. Cause they're looking for somebody at the
We
middle
have
school.
open position, but that's
Yeah.
already built into this budget. So you're
Well,
not
you
requesting-
remember that one of the WFPAs was you added
Yes.
one back.
Yeah.
We did have a resignation.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
an open position, which
Right.
could be causing some of all of that as they
Right.
run
So
around.
I don't wanna make sure that, I wanna make sure that position does get filled, even though that position isn't filled person right now.
Right.
We need to fill that position.
We would not be, to use your paradigm, we would not be cutting that open position.
Yeah,
I just put it back, so I
So
would
you're not,
not.
you're not requesting to add an additional
Yeah.
nurse. You're just saying you don't want to cut any nurse.
You wanna make sure.
Well, we
that-
also need to fill,
Yeah.
we're down a nurse, we need to fill that
That's
position.
in this budget.
Right.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, I won't reduce that open position because you didn't put it back.
Alright.
I wouldn't recommend or suggest that.
Thanks.
That's it for the moment.
What I'm hearing is 357.
That was just the clarification, because we had talked
Yeah.
about, we don't want to cut people, but we were okay with cutting a position. Except
Step down.
this position.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get, at.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I want to
I
clear.
think that's-
Saying stay away
Yes.
from that.
Yeah.
Please don't cut nursing positions.
Right.
Even if,
Even if
currently in
position is
person.
nurse right here.
Yeah. I know.
It's just, as the days go.
Okay, JP.
Yeah, one of the questions I was gonna ask, well, online, the answer might be to this question about positions. So, well, I think you came by for the part of the conversation at the workshop with the gentleman who's in charge of facilities. And part of the staffing discussion there, we hit on the point that some of the staffing for janitorial is there's a contingency built in that if you've got one person covering a school and that person calls out unexpectedly, what have you, then he's left holding the bag. But that so it sounded like there was an opportunity at the way things are right now, the gentlemen that are covering the schools are assigned to a school. They don't go to another one. If Bob calls out at TIS, Joe, and I'm making names up, so if I accidentally have an actual person's name. They don't go cover, as it is now, they don't go cover Bob from a different school, right?
Contract.
What was it? Well, right, exactly. That's where we got to, that there might be an opportunity if we could have a floater position, right? That would be able to go cover, you're not gonna, if you go on the basis that you're not gonna have multiple people call out unexpectedly on the same day. You just need to have, if you have somebody who could float, that potentially gives you the opportunity to not have one of those extra positions, right? And the comment was that was something that was limited by the contract at the moment. My question is, how hard of a constraint was that? Is that something that could be reopened? Like, when would the next negotiation be?
About 2 years. We had it and that was something that was wide in the sand.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong though. Didn't it trump though that if there was an emergency need, you
Well-
could make that decision?
Yeah, I mean,
Make that
talking
decision.
emergency,
Yeah.
not
Regular.
just hey, someone's sick. It was, emergency, like the roof's gonna collapse if we don't get a bunch of guys over to that, that place. That's a high level kind of structural damage, emergency, everything, but not just, I think. Mr. Holland is talking about it with respect to, day-to-day logistics. We don't have the ability.
Just a way to be more efficient in terms of covering that.
We tried for that, but we were not able to get that last negotiation.
Right, so that would be then JP, that would be an additional position.
He's
Right.
looking for a part-time.
Yeah, well, he's looking for, well,
Yeah, I mean,
he's looking for a part-timer to help with that. And I think my put would be for whoever is on negotiation. If part of the constraint there was you can't change the position description of an existing position. Okay, I get it, but we're in a stronger negotiating position if we say, look, you can either have nobody or you can have somebody contingent on the fact that we're now adding this floater terminology to this person's position description. And to me, if it saves you a staff slot that you can potentially use to help with, a mental health or security issue, frankly, my argument would be we ought to be willing to play hardball. No, you don't get the position unless you're willing to bend on this particular, if we can incorporate this into the PD, great, you get your position. Otherwise, you don't. Downside is, it sounds like that might be an opportunity for 2 years out. not
Yeah,
necessarily.
it's all contractual and you can't add a position after you've just eliminated a position.
Yeah.
You can't add a different position after you've just eliminated another position, which we did, which is why, one of the reasons why we weren't able to do
On
that.
the janitorial stuff.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
it is something that is 2 years out to
Okay.
try and get something like that language in. Again, I know we fought for the whole
Yes, that
emergency
scenario
language and.
You just
to get that.
described actually gonna happen.
Yeah, and just to caution you, and I know you didn't mean anything by it, but, it can be kind of an easy thing to say that we need to play hardball in negotiations. And once you go through negotiations, I think you'll see that we play hardball and there's gives and takes on both sides for sure. So I respect what you're saying. But again, if you look at our negotiations, and obviously this is personal to me as the former chair of that, we are below the state average on everyone. So, we don't have a lot of movement there, so we utilize everything that we can, but I completely respect your, thought process. I certainly respect that the custodians are hurting. We've made a couple cuts over the last couple of years. They are. But we cut from every single department last year. And that's something that, I did find myself repeating even at midnight, that although all of these reductions were terrible, there was not a department that wasn't touched to my, you know what I mean?
We didn't touch that.
They're impacted in many different ways here, Mr. Village.
It's true. So I'm just adding. Listen, we didn't touch that. It's a whole other
But
discussion.
what you just said, we just added one, so.
We did.
How would that look? But, okay, so do you have any suggestions possibly, Walt, with some of the things that we have said here and how maybe you could, I'm sorry, Mrs.
I just would like to suggest that we see a scenario that includes adding a social worker.
I was gonna ask for that too.
School and the PPT coordinator, facilitator role. Right, because those aren't in the budget, I would like to see what those costs roll up to.
Okay. Do you have any ideas here?
PPT facilitator and.
Social worker at the middle
Social
school, which
worker.
I was gonna ask,
Another 120,000.
I was gonna ask for one of the two,
One of them is 54 to
the
60.
social worker.
And that's being fairly optimistic. Like, social workers are, very competitive right now, so, when you hire, you're probably looking at this range of 50 to 70, not more.
So do you have any suggestions on some of the feedback that you've heard tonight of 3 scenarios you could run for us?
Well, what I'm hearing is a 3, a 5, and a 7, prioritize security and people over positions so far. So those are my marching kind of orders on those 3 things, right?
And I guess I said a 5, and that included the security and the tech.
Right.
So the 3, 5, and 7 could ask as well.
So I'm getting
3 gets
starting.
close to what Elaine asked for percentage wise.
Now, if you do want me to 35,000 position for Birchgrove. Behavioral. ABIS.
ABIS.
If you want, that's the kind of thing, Mrs. Eilish, if you want me to add something, then you'd give me the percentage, but the directive to add positions, but that also will mean if I add 100 or 120, then 100 or 120 have to come away from somewhere else,
When you,
obviously. Yeah.
when you give us these lists, can you put the dollar amount for each reduction so that way we know if we can swap and flip flop things back and forth? Or is that asking way too much?
No, I've done that in the past. I
Right.
could do it. The thing is, depending on what we're talking about, sometimes I have to, estimate an MA3, like MA7 higher or something.
Yep.
Because, bumping. I can say it's going to be, or I can project that it might be X, but once you're done with the process, you may reduce a position. The human being that may not have a job may not be the person in the position because there's bumping. And, there's some
So, like,
factual language about how people and in what order people would be reduced.
Dr. Willie, can I pause you? Because I keep feeling confused. So for instance, say we decided to reduce a certain grade level teacher.
Right.
Okay. Because of tenure, seniority, and some other things, like some teachers have particular, like they can teach chemistry, certifications. It's not necessarily that person that's currently in the role. So if Jane Smith is currently a, ninth grade teacher,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that if we eliminate a ninth grade teaching position that Jane Smith goes. It may mean that Jane Smith bumps another teacher out that has lesser seniority.
Right.
And then that teacher, that teacher would go, but the position would still be lost in that ninth grade.
You'd have that,
Person
one fewer
would be
less
somewhere else.
position in ninth grade, but the person,
That'll,
Mrs. Willett or Mr. Willett was that one, but had tenure over Ms. Galachant. Ms. Galachant would be the one ripped.
Okay.
And Mr.
And
Willett
so it
would
would
go
be
into
mine.
Galachant's job. That's what happens with senior. So sometimes a person on a lower seniority is making less.
Right.
So that's why I don't always know. We might cut that position, but that might bump someone who actually makes less than the person in the position. So
we may cut it.
The
We may cut
person
a
in the
position that
position
currently has a teacher in it that's on the top
makes,
staff, making the most amount of money. But when it bumps down, we actually lose someone on the lower.
Right,
end.
right.
You live
So
in
you're
the
not losing the 100,000, you're losing the 30,000.
Right,
Yeah.
but I have to be careful not to project a number of reduction that is higher than what might potentially, it's always
Yes.
going to be the first in. The last in, first
First
out,
out, yeah.
and that's always the,
Always. Not always.
well, more often than not, it's last in, first out, and hopefully it'll be no one out. But that's why I usually will take a number that is like on the step range of,
Mhm.
somewhere in the second to seventh step. I don't overdo it because then we'd be short.
Right.
So that's why I can give you a figure, but the figure will be somewhere in the, the step 1, step 2 to step 7 range, and probably more like your standard
Mhm.
MA position, step 2. And I would use that figure.
Yeah, we understand that.
You get that?
So, and then Jaden, to your point, just so you know, even though if we run scenarios that look like 3, 5, and 7,
This still exists.
we still have this scenario. The scenario doesn't go away. So we can move in between those scenarios.
But I do want you to be clear with me. If
Yeah.
you want me to add 2 positions, because I
Yeah.
understand their question, I need to know, because what's gonna happen is that 5% adding 2 positions, well, then I have to make sure I take the 120 from somewhere else, which means something we get lost to hit the 5, but I would prioritize and keep or add social worker.
To the 7.
I was gonna say, we can't, I don't think we can add it to the 3.
Yeah.
What Bill
No,
was saying.
but there, 1% of that, we know what it is already.
Around.
Yeah, but
Well, I'll do my best to
Yeah, to the
create
7.
these 3 tables that, kind of in and out, but, yeah. But I just want to walk out with a clear understanding, because you want to see it on February 4th, and I'll have a few working days to make that work. So I just want to make sure I don't misunderstand what you're looking for. So right now, 3, 5, and 7, prioritizing security. But I want to know if you want one of those to include a social worker and a facilitator, PPT facilitator. And do you want me to make that in lieu of the MTSS? Like, what are those
No.
kinds? No. So we want a 7, adding a social worker and a PPT facilitator.
What happened to the MTSS?
I would maybe like the social worker in the 5 as well.
But what you're telling me to do is prioritize over everything else. Whatever you're saying to do, I am now prioritizing over everything, even what I presented to you. So for instance, if you're saying prioritize and hire a social worker and an FPPT facilitator, I may knock out the MTSS position because I'm prioritizing a social worker.
Can I put maybe something else adjacent on the table? Do the 3, 5, and 7, we have the 9.9. Can we just get the cost for those 2 positions and then we can?
I can tell you pretty accurately.
Yeah, and if you build it onto one, we can move it into another.
Yeah,
120.
I wouldn't say hold that as the most important thing, right? Like, it's important to me to see it, but I don't, you know.
I think if you put it on this, just to make it easier for you, Dr. Willett, if you put it on the 7 and it has numbers on it, we know what that number is and we can move it in and out of other scenarios.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of having the numbers, the value for everything.
Which I think we did last.
We
I did.
did.
It was-
We got-
I did, I created that multi-column.
Yeah.
I just don't know how much time we
Right.
had. So
In any of these scenarios, do we no longer have the MTSS and no longer have the ABIS?
No, we would have them in all of the scenarios,
It's in all of the scenarios.
unless it's one of the
It
things.
depends on what you're and this is, I'm really glad you're asking and saying that.
Just
When
so
you
guys
tell
are
me what to
building a 9.9.
prioritize, it means everything else is on the table for not being
Split
priority.
Everybody.
So if we go in with, for instance, a 3% or a 5, if you say prioritize security, that means SATSA's, SRO, they're in, but the MTSS might not be in. You know, because that's not a security position, I have to no, so for instance, we'll prioritize teacher positions and security positions, then I only have certain other places to go, so. You know, that is going to be a lot of other stuff.
If you take MTSS and ABIS out on the 5% scenario, it'll show what the value is. There's nothing that There's nothing that says we can't say,
Because I had a sneezing attack and I'm not
Yeah.
feeling it, and I just wanted to make sure that they
right.
take it out of the.
There's nothing that says, if we see that and say, oh, we want those people to stay, figure out another way to get to that number, but put those people back in.
Okay.
The reality is none of us have sat here tonight and said, I think that you should cut this position or this program. At the end, of the things that we've suggested, they haven't been that much, except for that one security and
Keep in
tech
mind-
stuff. So
Yeah.
we're going to need to let Dr. Willett use some discretion with these 3 things, with the knowledge that we could always say, whoa, I see you have in here this, and I would like to
Yeah.
consider taking this out. Eventually, the hard conversation comes where when you want something else is gonna go if we're trying to get to a certain number. So I say, let's give him some discretion to work these 3 scenarios and then, and get your questions in as soon as possible, because I'm sure that's gonna help him build scenarios if he can tell that you're circling around something. And then let's see where we are. Let's see where we are next meeting. Let's. Yeah.
Keep in mind that every percent is about $450,000. Your standard
Write
position
that down.
is about,
Yeah.
you know, standard position
Forget it.
52 to 56.
Mhm.
So guess how many of those we need to get to 450, you know, and that's just like a teacher. So that every percent is roughly 450,000.
So
Right.
9 positions per 1%.
In a certain class, a position, yeah, I mean, it's-
We want to cut 7%.
I don't think we want to, we're going to see what that looks like, and then it does a lot. But, you know,
Yeah, I touched about it earlier. The reserve fund for the insurance, is it possible to? I know you said at the end of June, they'll be talking about it, and, you know,
yes,
is there a possibility of using, you know, potential 100K of that into our own insurance line item for this
well,
year?
this
for
would be
next
the
school year?
last year we could
Excuse
consider.
me?
This potentially could be the last year we could consider doing that the way we've been doing it.
Yes.
So it's possible, and if you tell me to prioritize certain things, I could explore those types of things. The thing is, at a time when everybody's divorcing everyone's gonna be keenly interested in what we're doing with those accounts. So it's a little bit different than a standard year because everyone's gonna be watching all the partner groups. Right now, everybody's money is in one account. So they're gonna be looking at, if we, withdraw a couple $100,000, they're gonna be paying very close attention to it as we get close to the settlement agreement. And that we want those numbers to be somewhat stable as we enter the final phase of the separation agreement, so it doesn't look like we just whipped out a bunch of cash right before the end. And, it wouldn't be illegal, but it could create.
Sure.
What
wouldn't need those-
to those accounts,
But what I'm just saying is maybe we wouldn't need those funds till, January of next year, right? Like, not saying we need it the first day of the new budget cycle.
So there's another piece of this. If and when this dissolves, everyone who's in this conglomerate will get their piece, right? Our piece will go to the town. We don't know how much of that money is going to go to the Board of Ed or is going to go to the town, right? So that's another piece of it.
Oh, no, I understand, you were
We have
stepped out
no,
earlier,
yeah.
we talked about it.
we have no commitment to those funds.
No, that's what I'm asking, that's what
Yeah.
I'm asking.
So
But if.
He said he has a meeting this next week or,
So-
and it's not more in the
Okay.
next few months.
So I missed that, yeah, so,
Yeah.
but I've already asked that question
Yeah.
previously too, because I'm with you, if we can use some of those funds, then we should be able to use some of those.
Okay.
Just keeping in mind that, when we walk out of here, the 3, the 5, the 7, and what I should prioritize, what you're also telling me is what not to prioritize. So when you're giving me what to prioritize, the door is open to the rest of it, because I can't, remember, each percent is 450,000. I can't get down millions without stuff. So that's the piece that if it's not stated to prioritize, that means it's open for doing what has to be done.
But that's not this evening though, is that, that's next week.
Well, that's between now and next week.
But
I need to
we've got
create these scenarios based on your priorities.
Can we start earlier next week?
Yeah.
So like I'll give you an example.
We have
If
to turn in our budget that night.
I thought it was, we have until the 14th.
you have, February 11th is the meeting you have for the approval of the budget, because you don't have a
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, we have a meeting next week.
But should,
To turn it in that night, so he has
February
to
11th.
make a bunch of changes and then he can
right,
go home and work on it all night long and hand it into the
so
town manager.
typically what
I'm
we'll-
lost there. I thought we were having 2 meetings before it needs to be turned in.
Well,
Typically what
You're
we'll
telling me
do,
no.
one.
yeah, in fact,
go.
for all intents and purposes,
I'm
now,
lost, I'm sorry.
so February 4th, when you tell me my marching orders, I bring back to you your scenarios. You move them around, but by the end of the February 4th meeting, I really need to know what you want me to do so I can create the document by February 11th. We did last year or whatever, try to give me stuff at the end of that meeting. That's not a great way to do that, where what we should do is give you the booklet, like I did the superintendent's proposed budget, and I gave it to you on the 14th. I should be giving you your Board of Ed budget on the 11th as a pretty much finished doc that you are now, voting to support. You can make a tiny tweak here and there, but that night is not for massive tweaks.
But this is the.
Yeah, but I'm talking about next week though, we can make changes, right? That's what I'm confused and you.
Yeah, next.
No, I'm just saying that by the end of next meeting, we have to pretty much have a decision, which is the February 4th.
so what will happen next week, Brian, is we'll look at these 3 budgets. And we'll move stuff back and forth
I
and
understand.
we'll discuss and we'll come to a consensus. Dr. Willett, we want this one with moving these stuff in, this stuff out. Do the hokey pokey and, that's kind of what we want. We won't vote on it. But that's where we want to settle. He'll then take it for the meeting on the 11th and create another booklet or document for us saying, okay, here's what you told me to do. We'll have one more look at it. And if there's some minor tweaks that we want to make on that night, that's okay. But that's the night that we'll be voting to approve it to send on.
And
I
it just,
understand that.
we have
but
to-
I'm saying, next week, I can bring a new idea next week, right? Or is right now, in the next 7 minutes before we go home.
All the ideas.
The only time. That's what I'm
You can
confused.
bring an idea anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Cautioning us
Yeah.
that the meeting next week can't look like this. Because we have to come to a conclusion by the end of that meeting. That's all I was saying. Yeah, you can bring anything you want to the table next meeting, but at the end,
I'm waiting on answers to some questions.
Sure.
Other people in here.
100%. I was just, because of what you said, which I don't even remember it anymore. By the time we adjourn, I just want everybody to, we don't have 2 more meetings to talk like this. We have 1 more meeting to talk half like this, but then come up with a number. And whatever we come up with February, for next week, February 4th, is going to be what the book says, February 11th. And besides some very minor tweaks, that has per the budget schedule that we all have, that has to be sent over to the town manager that
I
night.
understand that.
Okay,
I
Yeah.
understand.
just prepare.
No, I just thought I felt like there was a
Still
sense of
over.
like, I just felt like there was a sense that if I don't have my thing in by the next 7 minutes, I can't bring in ideas next week. I'm
No.
like, I don't remember that from last year. That's
Give you
all.
12.
So
I just wanted to clarify.
will we have the new numbers before the meeting on next week?
I don't think that
The
we
Usually
scenario.
used
those,
to have a lot of time to look at those scenarios.
the scenarios,
Getting, yeah, that,
what you're giving me, there's 5
I
working
understand that
days
those
to
will not
create.
be public documents.
that's what I was wondering. That was gonna be my next question is, are those public documents?
Not at the time, once we review them in the meeting, then they're public documents.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and in all frankness, any document I create for you is a voidable document.
Right,
But
right. So it would
But just
eventually.
what we try to do here is be sensitive to not creating tons of panic.
Yes.
So, someone can always FOIA anything we have. There's a process for that, but we try not, what I try to do is give you the scenarios you've asked me to create and then have you discuss it in here without creating panic on a lot of people's parts, because you may not land in a situation that has X and Y going away. But if we're not careful, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and everyone else will think it's
Things are
happening.
going away.
And it creates an exodus.
Right.
People are like, I better get
Right.
out of it.
Right.
So that's not what it is, which I want to see different happening. But I do want to walk out with, the one thing I'm not clear yet on is, I know 357, I know priority is security and people over positions. But do you want me to put something back here? Like, do you want me to put in something?
Well, it sounds like they wanted a social worker.
If you do, then I need to make sure I do that. I will add a social worker FTE, something else goes away.
Yes, add a social worker
In all
and
scenarios,
as a
The
PPP
seven.
coordinator to the 7% scenario.
7% scenario.
One of those
From
things.
there, things can be.
I like 1 or 2 or
That's right.
3 of the scenarios.
As long as
to
it's there.
Put the club back the way they're going this year with it.
And I will say, I'm happier with social worker ad than BPT ad, I have to.
Not.
I'm happier with social worker than.
As long as it's on that sheet, Dr. Willett, and we have numbers, we can move it around.
Once you see it all, it's almost easier to do than it is to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So on the 7, I'm adding a social worker and adding a PPT facilitator.
We still have to vote for that.
Yeah, that's what you said, yeah.
We'll just have to
Yeah,
get-
exactly.
That's-
So,
No, Elaine's like, we still have to vote, so.
We're having that meeting.
Yes, we do.
Correct.
Right, so I'm just waiting.
Oh.
Yes, hang on. Are you all set with your?
But I'm gonna repeat it to you, so you're very secure what I hear, right? I have a 3, a 5, and a 7, prioritizing security and people over positions. And the difference, with the 7 is I'm also adding a social worker and a PPT facilitator.
Correct, and you're not eliminating clubs.
Okay, and I'm not eliminating clubs, and so prioritize.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
He said-
He says he wants.
Also, you kind of eliminated.
So the way that you,
Well, that's why we have 2 different people. One person says, I want them eliminated. Yeah, that's my
You
idea.
misunderstood.
that's okay, but anything,
I'm sorry.
No, that was the.
I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to, money wise, I think.
anything not prioritized is on.
I'd rather keep a teacher or
Yeah.
Sorry, block attention.
Got it, yep.
So that would probably be Brian.
Excuse me?
For both the 3, 5, and 7, that will be one of the first things.
Okay.
Because it'll go back to what we have this year.
Okay, because it's in the 9th.
It's in the nine.
Yeah, so it'll still be there for your 9, Jade.
There you go.
But you think about it because I'm taking your other priorities. You know.
You don't move something around.
Look, I'll be realistic.
Okay, let's move to board action. I will,
Make a motion to have a special meeting February
four.
fourth
So-
for at 7 PM for the purpose of budget discussion.
Seconded.
Discussion, discussion, any discussion? Nancy,
Hopefully.
start.
I work for you. I can start as early or. You guys are the ones that, so
Um,
I'm not
I
sure.
can start an hour early personally.
You can start without me. I'm be fine. I'll send my thoughts in.
I'm not 100% sure.
Trust me.
My wife
I
keeps.
don't think we'll be able to do an hour early, or I don't think
It's
Jason.
not a no, I'm just not
Well,
sure.
what about a half hour? I mean, I'm happy, listen, half hour, we can, we'd get out of here at 10:30 tonight instead of 11:05. So, if that's
11:05?
it is 11:05.
The later they
Right.
get, so. what-
I think without.
Are the amendments
hard to.
That
It's
is also,
okay if the answers
Julian?
no. I just feel bad because she can't say.
that's fair. Somebody.
And her can't.
Are you withdrawing your request?
Yeah, all right, withdrawn.
Okay, so, any other discussion? Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Oh, no, sorry.
can't do that.
You don't get two votes.
Was this supposed to be a roll call when it's here?
Nope, still, no one had it. So just about- Thank you. Yeah, so, any abstentions? Okay, so that passes unanimously. We'll have a meeting next February 4th. That brings us to public participation.
Wait, what
Wait.
about the joint town council meeting?
Remember we were gonna talk about doing that next week because.
Oh, yeah,
It's been a little bit of
I know
turmoil.
we already passed the motion, but I know Walt had mentioned something about having it in his office.
We gotta check to.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
the location, we didn't specify, so if it's open and
So
wild.
TBD on the location.
No, I just want to clarify. if it was-
I mean, would you, just for kicks, would you prefer my office? Because if you would, I'll prioritize my office.
Why would we do why would we do that?
I
Well,
think here's fine.
Is then we're limiting public.
Right, why would we,
Yeah, here is good.
Okay, if it's not available here,
Then you're
in
on.
the office is fine.
okay,
Or would we rather the library?
there's other, yeah, I mean, you basically, if it's not here, I'll allow you. I'll choose wherever we can get, but, you
We'll
know.
leave that up to you.
Yeah, there you go.
We have no one in the room and we have no one online for public participation, so I'm gonna skip that. And points of information, would anyone from the board like to speak again at this time?
We have one person online, don't?
Lisa.
No,
No.
that's,
Oh, okay, I can check. She goes on. Gotcha.
any other points of information?
So-
No? Okay, I will.
So moved.
No objections.
We don't have to vote on that.
Motion
Motion
to
to adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Okay. We are adjourned.